watch. All right, we're going to get started tonight. We're going to have 4 public hearings here tonight before we have the Plan Commission meeting. So we're going to open up the first public hearings here at 6:30. Jane, would you do a roll call, please?
Joe Osterman.
Here.
Becky Plotecker, absent excused. Ed Nelson.
Here.
Mark Meyer.
Here.
Jane Stadler. Here. Brian Oliphant.
Here.
Chad Smansky.
Here.
Dan Lindstrom.
Here.
Dan Green.
Here.
Kevin Clark.
Here.
All right, so we have a quorum of the Plan Commission. We also have a quorum of the Town Board. We have Linda Beal, and Tadia Gamino, and Joseph Osterman from the Town Board. All right, for the first public hearing is a joint public hearing that will be conducted by the Town of Lisbon Board of Supervisors and the Plan Commission on Thursday, September 12th, 2019, beginning at 6:30 p.m. at the Town of Lisbon Town Hall, West 234, North 8676 Woodside Road, Lisbon, Wisconsin 53089, to consider a proposed amendment to the Town of Lisbon Comprehensive Development Plan 2035. The purpose of the public hearing is to accept public comments on the proposed amendment. An application has been filed by WP Property Acquisitions, LLC, for the property owned by Betty Brown Slayton Living Trust, requesting an amendment to the land use plan map adopted as part of the Town Comprehensive Development Plan. The application requests that the land use plan map be amended from low-density residential and other open lands to be preserved to industrial and low-density residential on parcel LSBT 0273.998. The isolated natural resource area will not be amended. The subject property is located at North 55 West 25299 Richmond Road. Is there anyone here that wishes to speak on this public hearing tonight? Come up, state your name and address.
Good evening. My name is Mark Lake from Wangard Partners, WP Property Acquisitions, Inc. I want to speak in favor of the development and give you a little background for what it is. Right now, we're currently developing the property to the east in the village of Sussex, and the logical extension would be to go west. And the reason why we're coming and look for the property in the town is that if you look at the Waukesha County industrial they have a pamphlet that came out in 2017 or 2015 and then updated in 2017, basically saying, hey, we have a need for industrial properties in Waukesha County, and more specifically, they have identified a couple areas within the town of Vernon, and we and the town of Lisbon and the village of Sussex and a whole bunch of other places, and we wanted to make sure that the lands that were adjacent to ours in the village of Sussex were at least recognized, and for the benefit of the community and the town of Lisbon, and to help offset the tax base in the property. Essentially, what we're proposing to do is do an extension of our current industrial park, which shows, and it's not that large. It's only a 54-acre industrial park with some open space on the north side. And then what we're looking for is and here in the town of Lisbon, we're looking for an expansion of that, which another 55 acres, 65 acres or so, and then there's a logical divide. We're trying to narrow it down, and it's basically built on the geology. There's a field up on top which kind of accesses Richmond Road, and then the rest of it goes down to Highway K, and that's the demarcation line. The INRI, and there's a wetland up there, would all stay the same and not go anywhere. And we're just proposing a logical extension that would come down to McKerrell, would be called McKerrell Drive Extension north into our development. We're looking for developing this over the next couple of years, but to start the process, we need to update the comprehensive plan to get it into the appropriate land use first. So if there's any questions, thank you.
Thank you. Does anyone else wish to speak?
Pat Schaefer. I live at North 52 West 25772 Highway K or Lisbon Road. We are the next house west of the proposed project. All I got to say is I'm against changing it to business and industrial. I don't want the city in my backyard. I live in the town of Lisbon, been born and raised in the town of Lisbon, lived at my present place for over 40 years. I live in the town of Lisbon because it's out in the country, but that is disappearing. And I'm sorry, but I don't want the city in my backyard. So, thank you.
Thank you. Does anyone else wish to speak?
Hi, my name is Andrea Lorenz, and we live north 55, we're right on Richmond Road there, and conversely to the last gentleman who talked, we're fairly new to the area. In fact, we just purchased our home just about a year ago, and we bought the property for the beautiful surroundings and the wetland, and it would be a shame for our children's backyard to turn into something like this gentleman was proposing. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
I'm Ron Everett. I live at North 56 West 25 420 Richmond Road, which is directly north of the property that you're talking about. I've lived here for a few years, 76 to be exact. I've seen it all. I lived in the village of Sussex. I was born and raised there, right dead center in the middle of Sussex. I used to be able to lay on my back in Sussex and see the northern lights. When I moved to Richmond Road, the development that occurred was basically in Sussex, subdivisions and things of that sort. There wasn't a whole lot of subdivisions going on in the town of Lisbon at that time. Right now there's subdivision after subdivision after subdivision. Lake 5 Road is just being plastered with houses, and I don't know what the town of Lisbon's plan is for their total build out, but the way it's going now, it looks like the total build out should occur sometime about 2056. I don't oppose this. I think that by being a bedroom community, we have a major problem here in the town trying to keep our taxes low. We have two school systems. We have the University of Hamilton and we have the University of Arrowhead. And I think that we have to keep this commercial developments together. I think this is a perfect place to meet up with the development that the village of Sussex is having right now. And as far as some of the people saying we're going to be imposed by light, I don't see that. I mean, the lights are already there. We're going to be hurt by trucking. Look around, ladies and gentlemen. There's a lot of trucks out there every day. If you want to go sit on K, you can count them. And it's getting worse every year. So I think that it's a good thing. I think that the town needs things like this, and I think it's in the right place. Thank you.
Thank you. Does anyone else wish to speak? All right. Final.
Elizabeth Waldron, North 55, West 25555, Richmond Road. My husband and I have lived in the community for 23 years. We moved here because it was a rural environment. We spent most of our time developing a wildlife refuge on our almost 10 acres. We oppose this zoning restructuring because it would ruin our environment. It would chase away a lot of the wildlife that we see every day. It would lower our tax rate, our home value, because it's going to be changing from a rural environment to close to industrial development, and I oppose this rezoning.
Thank you. Does anyone else wish to speak?
I have a question. What?
If you
what
want
is
to,
in,
sir, if you want to step on up here,
Okay,
state your name and address if you would.
John Waldron. I'm at N55W255 Richmond Road. That was my wife who just spoke. And I'm wondering, what do you mean by industrial?
As far as the zoning,
Pardon?
you want to know what the industrial zoning
Yes.
is? Okay. What we do is we'll write everything down and then we'll address it during the meeting. We don't usually do back and forth right now.
Okay, but, I mean, if it's very light industrial, it isn't as bad, but if it's heavy industrial, I'd be 100% against it. We are fairly close to this, probably the closest of any of these people. We got the letter, and I can see where, I don't know if you can say you're going to have lower taxes on this. I mean, people assume that, but you may use that for other things. And I'm concerned about our property value going down. Sure, maybe lower taxes, but I think there'll be that's another reason of it. And I had time to, I just don't have enough time to think of other reasons, but it's very close to us. Other people are a little further away. It's not going to affect them as much. I know Lorenz's are very close, they're our neighbor. And that's all I have to say.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else wish to speak on this one? The next one is very similar also. It's going to be the rezone, so we're going to have another public hearing right after this one for that one. But does anyone else wish to speak in this public hearing?
I have a letter to read into the record.
Okay.
This is from Keith and Jennifer Braden. This is to share our comments with respect to the proposed amendment to the Town of Lisbon Comprehensive Development Plan 2035 in connection with the application filed by WP Property Acquisition LLC for the property located at N55 W25299 Richmond Road, the Brown Farm. We understand that an application has been filed with WP Property Acquisition LLC to change the land use to industrial and to rezone the bulk of the property to BP1. We are strongly opposed to those changes. The proposed changes in structures that will follow will significantly and negatively impact the nearby town residents in several aspects, including noise pollution, light pollution, and increased traffic, likely including heavy truck traffic. Wildlife that is currently abundant in the area and coexists with the residents will be displaced. The construction that will eventually occur at this site will detract from the rural feel for which the town of Lisbon is known. The rural nature is what drew us and many of our neighbors to the town. The current 2035 plan for this property, which consists mainly of low-density residential and other open land, is much more fitting with the nature of the town of Lisbon and fits better with the residential surroundings that currently exist, while continuing to provide natural habitat for the area wildlife. We strongly urge the board and Plan Commission to consider the impact to the environment and our residents, and to maintain the current plan and zoning to preserve the rural residential nature of our town. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan. All right, one final call for anyone who wishes to speak on this public hearing. All right, we'll close that one at 6:44. And we'll open up the next joint public hearing between the Plan Commission and Town Board to solicit public comments on the rezoning from A10 Agricultural District to BP Industrial Business Park Special Use for the property owned by Betty Brown Slayton Living Trust for the property located at North 55 West 25299 Richmond Road, tax key LSBT 0273.998 for the purpose of expanding the New Highland Business Park currently under construction. This is very similar to the last one, but does anyone else wish to speak on this one or add any comments in?
Again, Mark Lake, 1200 North Mayfair Road, Milwaukee, Wisconsin, representing WP Properties, Inc. For the Brown family Betty Slayton Farm Trust property. Again, what we're trying to do, and the next phase in it is to do the rezoning, which is what this public hearing is for. And again, what we're looking to do is to extend the existing industrial park, which is under development, and that's the southern 2/3 of the 80-acre parcel. All the property along Richmond Road will stay the same. There's no trees going to be cut down. There's nothing that you're going to actually even see from Richmond Road because it's going to be down along Highway K. The business park is a normal business park. There's not really heavy industrial uses going to be proposed for the park. A lot of it could be high cubed storage. A lot, it could be some light industrial, having some manufacturing, which would have its fair number of employees. Some of them wouldn't, but it's really meant to be to augment the existing uses that are in the existing Sussex Corporate Park or Commerce Park, and then in the Highlands Business Park, just to the west. That's under construction, and then we would logically extend that over in here into the town of Lisbon.
Thank you. Does anyone else wish to speak on this public hearing?
Kathy Schaefer, North 52, West 25772, Highway K. I just feel that is a residential land. Scottish Highlands is residential. Across the road should not be industrial. Industrial should be in Sussex, not out in town of Lisbon where we are.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Jason Lorenz, North 55, West 25519. My wife just spoke. We're going to be living right next to this, and my big concern is water. If the well gets contaminated or gets lowered enough that I'm going to have to drill my well deeper, what guarantees or how do we go about talking to you guys about that? That's my big question about this.
Okay. Anyone else?
I'll speak again. At Schaefer, Lisbon Road. I have concerns with water too. There is running water on this property. It comes down from Richmond Road, soaks in the fields down towards K. There is drain tile that runs along under K and over to the property to the south, which is owned by the county now. I'm concerned that when they put this new road in as it's designed, it's going to alter that water and send it over by our house. We have enough problems with water as it is. I don't know if changing the zoning is going to help with that or not, but I'd like that to be addressed. Also, the comments about the tax base, we need more taxes and stuff. We didn't have as much development, we wouldn't need all that taxes. You start putting in industrial stuff, what's the fire department going to do? They're going to need bigger trucks and more equipment. Means spending more money. So, thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Final call for this public hearing. Close this public hearing at 6:49. The next public hearing is actually not on the agenda tonight. It's just the public notices were put out. So we're going to read it into the record here, but there will be no action taken at the public hearing tonight, or at the Plan Commission meeting, excuse me. This one is to solicit public comments on the conditional use permit for a major grading permit to construct a pond for Philip Knable for the property located at North 75 West 26895 Oakwood Road, Hartland, Wisconsin 53029. Tax key LSBT 0211.999.008. Is there anyone here that wishes to make comment on this public hearing?
Yes, hi, Michael Stull, N75W27003 Oakwood Road. 35-year resident of the town of Lisbon. We live directly south of Mr. Knievel. What do you know about this project at this point in time?
We will answer all. We don't do back and forth during the public comments, so if you want to know more of that, we'll talk about that during the meeting.
Which will be held next?
Right. Well, the thing is that this item is not on the agenda tonight. They didn't get their information in on time. So we put out a public hearing notice for this, thus we're having a public hearing. There's going to be no action taken. There's not even an agenda item for this tonight, to be honest with you. So it's going to be, I'm assuming, the next public hearing, or next Plan Commission meeting, I mean?
Depends on when the applicant gives the information to the engineer that you requested. At this point, he hasn't, so
Okay.
possibly the next meeting.
All right.
So that's why you're not seeing information, because we don't have it either.
All right, thank you.
Thanks. Is there anyone else here that wishes to speak on this one? All right, we'll close this one at 6:51. The next public hearing is to solicit public comments on the conditional use permit request for an automobile, gasoline, and service station and convenience stores associated with gasoline sales in the B2 local business district, and for Quick Trip Inc. for the property located at North 67 West 27619 Silver Spring Drive, Lisbon, Wisconsin 53089. Tax key LSBT 0219.994.001, 0219.994.002, and 0219.994.003. Is there anyone that wishes to speak on this public hearing tonight? This is for the Quick Trip.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the Plan Commission and Town Board. Troy Melezeva, Real Estate Manager with Quick Trip, 1626 Oak Street, La Crosse, Wisconsin. Thanks for the time this evening. Our proposal related to this public hearing item is to take the facility that's the Quick Trip that was formerly the PDQ in the town on Silver Spring, between Silver Spring and right near Lake 5 intersection, and rebuild it into a proper facility that we think would last the town and the residents for a long time to come. So with that, our plan would be to reconstruct a new store to the east of the existing facility while the existing store stays open, rebuild a new store, new fill pumps in that area, also provide new diesel fueling operation, and then when that facility is constructed, we would demolish and remove the old facility, the existing facility. Our plan, in short, would be to do that next year, and we're looking for your support in that effort today. So happy to answer any questions as we go through things. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to speak on this public hearing?
Hi, my name is Bob Kiley. Address is W274 N6678 Lake 5 Road. We have a small horse farm right across Lake 5 Road from the proposed site for the Quick Trip. And we've been there for almost 25 years. Things are looking a lot different than they did 25 years ago. And I'm not necessarily opposing the construction of the new Quick Trip. My biggest concern is access to Lake 5 Road. If access to the new service station is only from Silver Spring, I think that makes sense. It's mostly commercial along there. If there ends up being a driveway from the proposed building out to Lake 5 Road, then that really starts to infringe upon the few residences, including ours, right across the street from it on Lake 5. It would add a lot of traffic. So I just would very much object to access from Lake 5 Road directly. So, thank you.
Thank you. Does anyone else wish to speak?
I'm Amy Peterson, Bob's wife, also W274N6678 Lake 5 Road. I agree with him about the traffic density, but I have another concern, and that is noise pollution. When Mary's Storage was constructed across from us, we thought that that was going to be no big deal, but it's turned out to be noisier than we expected. Add on the traffic if the Quick Pick is also putting traffic onto Lake 5 Road, and the sky's the limit. So I agree with my husband that if the egress is going to be onto Silver Spring, okay, but not Lake 5 Road, please.
Thank you. Anyone else for this public hearing? And final call for this public hearing. We'll close this one. It's,
Sorry, I
you
have
got
one
one
more
more.
email to read. This is from Ken Coyne. My name is Ken Coyne. I live at N56W22164 Silver Spring Drive. When setting the hours of operation for Casey's, you use the Quick Trip hours as the template for setting Casey's hours. It's my understanding that Quick Trip is now asking for 24-hour operation. I live adjacent to Casey's and don't want Quick Trip to open 24 hours for fear it would lead to Casey's being open 24 hours. Therefore, I'd ask that you limit Quick Trip to their current hours, which I believe is open at 5 a.m. and close at 11 p.m. Ken Coyne.
Thank you, Dan. All right, now we'll do final call for,
Ryan Carvu. My address is 2096 Hickory Court, Oconomowoc, but I own the property adjacent to the Quick Trip at West 275 North 6683 Marine Drive. We're in support of the Quick Trip expanding because we feel that the area is already congested and that there's a demand for it. I can understand all the concerns for noise. They're the same concerns we get with our business. But as far as there being a need for it, we think that it's congested already and we would be in support of it.
thank you. All right, now final call. All right, we'll close this public hearing at 6:57. That'll take us into our regularly scheduled Plan Commission meeting here at the Town Hall at 6:57. We already did roll call. Item 2 is comments from citizens present pertaining to any item on the agenda tonight. Does anyone wish to speak on any item on the Plan Commission agenda tonight? This will be the final chance for anyone in the public to speak on this unless you're an applicant. All right, move on to item 3, which is discussion necessary action on the August 8th, 2019 Plan Commission public hearing and meeting minutes. Everybody has the minutes. Is there any corrections or is there any motion on the minutes?
Mr. Chairman, I move that the minutes be approved as written.
Moved by Ed Nelson to approve. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Chad. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. All right, let's move this table out here so we get a place for applicants to sit.
Just turn it on.
Excuse me to get up. All right, under new business, A, discussion and necessary action on the following request for Mark Lake on behalf of WP Property Acquisitions, LLC, property owner Betty Brown Slayton Living Trust for the property located at North 55 West 25299 Richmond Road, tax key LSBT 0273.998. We have the number 1, the comprehensive plan amendment from low-density residential and other open lands to be preserved to industrial and low-density residential and recommendation to the town board of the same, and a rezone of a portion of the parcel from A10 to BP district and C1 and recommendation to the town board of the same. Okay, you want to come on up? We'll start out with Dan.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chair. Behind me, now it's behind me, not to my right, so this is the first meeting where actually I don't have to look sideways. I can actually look at you guys now. So that's good. There is the map that I have included in your packet. The applicant has stated the majority of the material that I was going to kind of present to you tonight, but I will go through a couple items and I'll try to answer some of the questions that were asked here tonight. I'm sure the applicant can also touch on a few of those items as well. So in general, here we are as we know, immediately adjacent to the village of Sussex on Highway K, and sandwiched between Highway K and Richmond Road. On the map is the current, what I call it, the current future land use map. It's kind of some nomenclature, but the existing future land use map that we have on file. The applicant is proposing to amend that to the packet that was included, and the map that was included in your packet, to the industrial designation. I'll touch on what the BP is when we get to that item here. I can go through both kind of items together because they kind of do go together, and we can talk on that way, and then you can act accordingly, or I could do them as two separate items. But in general, when the land use map was created, it was created in 2010. It's been amended many times since. As items come up, oftentimes a future land use map can't account for everything, and so as a result, some of the map, they do go through the amendment process. The applicant has requested to switch from that single-family designation to the industrial designation. And what that means from a land use side versus a zoning side can be somewhat confusing, so I'll touch on that here shortly. But overall, here's the current zoning of the property. We're taking a look at that A10, the majority of it A10 with a small segment of that C1, and then as proposed. In the packet, you may have seen one map that showed BP1 and one map that had it crossed out on the one. I just want to make a clarification. The BP1 is the Sussex designation, and BP is the town of Lisbon's designation. When the BP district was drafted, it was drafted as pretty much a mirror image of the Sussex code, with some minor modifications to meet, I guess you'd say, some of the town requirements. So I do want to make that clarification. With the remainder of the property to the north, as the applicant had mentioned, to remain as A10, with again some of those additional C1 acres. We can touch on some of the specifics of what that BP district does and what the requirements are, but I did also want to touch on that report that the applicant had mentioned. Waukesha County had submitted and through the Southeast Wisconsin Regional Planning Commission commissioned a study, one for I guess you would say, absorption study of what is available to us and what would that and how long would that get us into the future, and then also where would the prime opportunities be for some additional information. So I did include the executive summary. I didn't include the entire 110-page document in your packet. Figured you wouldn't want all of that, but I did provide you the link if you did want to go to that yourself. The map in front of you, as well as on the screen, is kind of the blow up or the kind of the zoomed out version, and I do have the blown up version of what some of those sites mean. In general, a property that was identified in blue was identified as the most compatible with an existing business park or existing utilities. An item that was identified in red was at least compatible, and then somewhat compatible was in that orange. I did also include the analysis of how that was calculated in that packet as well. So I can touch on that if there's any questions to it. But again, it was Waukesha County and Southeast Wisconsin Regional Planning Commission study in 2017. So this is just the kind of the detailed view. At the time, that study also did take a look at a few other items, which was the impact of greater surrounding neighborhoods and how could that be minimized. And I think the applicant here has kind of taken that to the next level, which is trying to differentiate between the residential portion and the industrial portion of this one. The maps that were included in your packet would not be the final maps, I guess you would say, as we propose forward, because we would require scale and detailed maps that would be more scalable than what we have here. But in general, looking at these maps, this was what's up for discussion tonight. So I can touch on I'll touch on a couple of the questions that we had here tonight, and then if I miss any, please let me know, and I'll try to get through them all. Let me get through my note page here. We had a question about the lower tax value. The applicant has expressed in their summary letter what the proposed development would be. It's going to ultimately be up to the town board to set those rates, and also with the surrounding jurisdictions to also the overlapping jurisdiction to set rates. And so to say that it will or it won't, it all is kind of it's shaking a magic 8 ball at that point. It does have a positive impact, and you would be including your tax base, and that's good. But if there would be more developments throughout the community, you can't really anticipate yes or no, up or down. In general, development of this size, if you were to stay flat, yes, it would reduce your overall tax rate to that point. But again, there's just so many other things that go into a municipality's taxes than just one development. So I just want to make that clear. Stormwater concerns, we do have the village, or the town stormwater engineer here who can answer any questions about the requirements of what has to happen for stormwater in relation to any single development. And so if there's any questions about that, he can touch on that one. But I'm going to focus more so on the BP district because there were some concerns about what is in that BP district. And so the BP district, from a general standpoint, is our business park, our industrial/business park special zoning district. It's our most restrictive, I guess you would call it, manufacturing district, with the highest design standards, highest decibel standards, highest requirements than our other manufacturing districts in the community, our M1 and our M2 district. There are some, I guess you would say, less intense uses, which are permitted uses, which as development happens and moves forward, that would be a site plan of operation situation. Every time a new development comes in, the Plan Commission would have to see that site plan of operation as they continue to move forward. There are some listed conditional uses that would also go with that, that would require an additional step at that point. So the conditional use permit process would be involved. And in that case, that would also have notice requirements, just like we'd see for a conditional use permit here tonight. So neighbors and individuals would be notified of that meeting as well. Because it uses the NICS codes, I'm not going to read off every one of those standards because it is about 3 or 4 pages long, or what those types of uses would be. But in general, the more intense uses are going to be in the conditional use category, and the lighter uses are going to be in the permitted use category. There are other items that are also going to be prohibited uses, and that's going to be your heavy uses. And so any things that's dealing with processing of bulk fertilizers, forages, drive-through junkyards, those kind of, I guess you would say, kind of more heavy in M2 districts are prohibited in the BP district. So from a standpoint of the intensities, you're going to see more of the permitted uses be the light, almost assembly. And as you get towards the conditional use permits, it's more of the manufacturing. And then again, what's not permitted in that BP district is going to be some of those heavy uses. And so I just want to make that clear. So it's going to be up to the Plan Commission to hear from the applicant tonight, as well as you heard from the public, to kind of make that determination to figure out if this is an appropriate amendment. Moving forward from that standpoint, the adjacency to the Sussex Business Park, and with the opportunity to potential share some services between the two, between some municipal agreements, this would make sense as a logical extension for that opportunity. In part because it would reduce the cost of potentially the town acquiring and building its own infrastructure. So if there is opportunities to share municipal infrastructure between sewer, as we have in our agreements, it would help kind of reduce that cost. So that's going to be up to the Plan Commission to make that determination tonight. So with that, the only other comment I would say that if it's under the comprehensive plan recommendation, that also the Village of Sussex also has to kind of work and coincide and amend their future land use map. Typically in a case in which we would be further out away from the village, Waukesha County would actually have to amend their map. But in this case, because they have overlapping jurisdiction, Waukesha County takes the hands-off approach and lets the adjacent village kind of take precedent. And so in this case, we have that map that also has to be addressed, but also the border agreement map also has to be addressed. And so there's a couple other things that also have to be addressed prior to that one. So at this point, I'd recommend approval based off the information provided, in that study, but conditioned on the village and the town working together to amend that border agreement map, Exhibit H of the border agreement. So I can be available for any questions after that.
Questions from the board? Anything, Ed?
Dan, is there any idea how many parcels will be developed? I mean, that will be on the site in Phase 2?
I will default to the applicant on that one because specific plans have not been created.
Because light industrial, etc., a lot is in play.
Yeah, understand. Mark Lake from Wander Partners.
Thank you, Mr. Lake.
We are proposing, right now, that area on the south side is like 55 acres. And it really depends on the user. And so right now the roads are not designed because what's happening in the marketplace these days is you have users that come through and say, okay, I want a 100,000 square foot building. I want a 200,000 square foot building. I need a 300,000. And and so you're moving things around. Well, what will it fit? It will fit about 800,000 square feet of building in terms of what is the density, what is the floor to area ratio, how much pond stormwater would be required, and where would be required to put it, how much parking lot and stuff would be required as you look at putting everything together. You could fit about 800,000. Will there be? Not sure. But in the end, it could be one lot, it could be two, it could be three. We try to start at 5 acre lots, which would bring you 10, minus the road, which is probably about 4 acres. So you're down to about, you're probably at 10 or so at 50 acres and 5 acres for a road, or 4 or 5 acres for the road that would come through. You're going to have a 6 to 8 acre pond that would be required for this size of a development, or ponds on individual lots.
Okay.
It kind of depends on how the lowest spot is the southwest corner on it. So you're probably down to at least eight lots now, because you've already subtracted a pond potentially, you've already subtracted a road, and in terms of amount of acres, you're probably about 42 acres worth of development. And if you had 5 acres per lot, then you could have up to 8. But it could be 3, it could be 4.
Okay. One casual observation, certainly with phase 1, it's undergoing extensive excavation. It's going to be soil and water, correct? Tied into Sussex, obviously. And you have a settlement pond in what is the southeast corner. The lowest spot, and it looks, I don't know how large it is, but it looks huge. So
5 acres, about 11 acres square feet.
Okay, all right. Well, you answered my question. In other words, it's obviously all subject to the marketplace and marketability. So, Dan covered quite a bit of information. I have no further questions at this time.
All right. Chad?
I'm okay.
Mark?
I'm okay. I'll just say that, or I actually have one question for you. You had that the northern third, you weren't proposing changing that zoning at this time.
Correct.
Is there a long-term plan that would change that, or that you would want to change it for?
Right now, I think it's best to stay in its existing zoning, because Richmond Road is rural in nature still, and it's residential in nature still. For us, that area is 30 feet higher than the rest of everything that's down on Highway K. So there's completely different looks at it. And I think if we were looking at it a long-term plan, long-term play, in our eyes, it's a residential plan more than it's anything.
I think I'm going to be okay with this, because it looked like the lines you drew for where you want to change this zoning kind of save all those trees and provide a buffer between this development and the residences that are still going to remain there. I don't think I would be so inclined on the northern third. And without those trees there, I don't know if I'd even really be real happy with this development. But I think we've got just enough separation there where the impact would be minimal on those homes. That's it.
Thank you.
Okay. Jane?
Where is there? You've got that funny notch in this BP1 district going into the C1 district up here.
Yes,
Is that the barn, the pole barn that's there?
Yeah, it's in there. That's actually somewhat of a low area. There's up in that area, no different than where it showed on the other zoning map. There's a wetland on the C1 piece. There's a seep that runs through there.
Yeah.
So it's there's a little bit of a wet area, but that's kind of where that barn is right now. Barn won't stay, but right in that area is a lower area. It's been identified as a wetland.
Okay. And my other question is, in your letter that you sent to us, you said that you would like to have a TIF district. And talking about taxes, I know that if a TIF district, if somebody could explain how that works, because I understand that the school taxes then go up because they have to be paid from somewhere. And if they're not paying them, Who's paying them?
If this were to get a TIF district, and that's
Yeah.
an if, the current taxes that are paid on the property do not change. So everything that's going to the school, all the taxing entities stay the same. Now, we only have one TIF district in the town right now, but all the taxing entities would get the same amount of money they were getting. Anything that is the increment, the increase, would go towards paying for infrastructure on the site. Now, there was a study that was done, actually paid for by you guys to do this, and then look at the feasibility of this, but that is something that has not been, there's been no movement on that or anything at this point.
Okay.
So, but that is, as far as the taxes questions go, if this develops out 100%, your taxes are not going down, let's be frank. I mean, what community has lower taxes even after development? I mean, we've done a good job, I think, of keeping taxes low. I think you can notice that in our surrounding municipalities, but I'm not gonna sit here and tell you your taxes are gonna go down, because they're not. So let's just knock that right off the board, right off the top. So hopefully it shouldn't impact them as going up, but it's not gonna bring them down either. Hopefully it would be a neutral site at that point, I believe.
Okay, well, then I don't have any other questions, except that we have to make sure that it's included that this all depends upon Sussex's okaying the change and accepting and changing their site plan as well as ours.
Okay.
We have Business Drive and Future Road. Is that already planned to be stubbed to end at that property line? Or is Business Drive going to run through, and then if this goes through, then you're going to add on to that, on that road?
Our plan within Village of Sussex does show the future road. We have a utility line that sits there just in case something should happen, and it should go through, but we never built the road. But in order to service this property, that's where it would come from. And so we kind of planned for it, but it's not built, and we're not anticipating to build it immediately. And like I said before, I think our plan is to develop this lot when that property is fully developed, then we'll move forward and we'll come onto the Brown Farm. But no, it might be next year, it might be 2 years from now.
The only reason I'm asking is because if it's stubbed out, ready to go now, I guess what my concern would be is if this gets rezoned from agricultural, then I'm concerned that it would create a domino effect. So in other words, then the next property over, which is along K, then they're going to come in and then industrial, and then you're just going to have industrial all the way down Highway K. And I know you can't tell the future, and I know that's not why you're here, but I'm just voicing a concern.
We at least talked to Washoe County, we talked to the DOT. DOT dealt with 164, and Washoe County dealt with Highway K, and what would be the logical use, and where would it logically come down and hit? Because it's not going to necessarily just keep going to the west. It really wouldn't, because you want to get something back. I mean, for emergency services, no less, you'd want to get it back. And we thought it had to be at Mercuro Drive, because if it would come in anywhere else, it'd be in somebody's front yard. So that's where our intent is. If anything, this is what it looks like in schematic for now. And certainly we'd come back to you folks with a plan if we were to change it even from what it looks like today.
And one last question. Did anyone that you know of, or even yourself, did anyone explore this property and dabble with the idea of it being residential development? Or maybe that's not your forte. I'm just curious if that is something that was explored.
We didn't look at it as we don't develop single-family residential.
Okay.
That's easier to say it that way.
Okay, no problem. Fair enough. I'm good.
All right. Some of the questions that were asked tonight, water was one of them. Obviously, you would anticipate the site being developed on sewer and water.
Correct.
So the town has 37,000 gallons of sewer capacity that we purchased per the board agreement for that property. We have that capacity in the plant. That was anticipated back in the day as being a residential lot. So that was why, that's what the recs were based off of back then. Now, as we just found out on the last development, a couple of Plan Commission meetings ago with Newman, it's pretty unlikely anybody's gonna develop 1 acre parcels on sewer. The cost to do it is extensive, and it's not gonna happen. Now, we do have sewer capacity purchased. I don't know that 37,000 gallons is anywhere near enough for what you're.
Actually, I think it's the inverse. It's industrial use is significantly less than single family.
I think it depends what it's gonna be.
Depending on the size of the building, you're really because you're still dealing with the rec, right?
Yeah.
The rec is 3 or 4 people. I don't remember what it is these days. And so you're really looking at the number of employees, and then how many bathrooms they have, and that use. But it's paid for, and part of the impact fees would buy that capacity into the system.
It depends if you get like a tombstone user or something like that.
Yeah,
That's a high water user. I mean,
Yep.
but I mean, just this is what we have as a town have purchased. There's 37,000 gallons of sewer capacity for that property. We have some around that area also. Something we do need to address, obviously, is the board agreement states this is going to be residential. I mean, it shows it on the map. That, in essence, is why our comp plan hasn't changed. It isn't that the town didn't want to change this. It isn't that this study wasn't out from Waukesha County. It's not that this information wasn't out there. Our board agreement says this is going to be residential. In fact, we just had meetings with the Village of Sussex and discussing a whole bunch of different topics. And it was, at the very last meeting, it was brought up in there that you guys on your Plan Commission meeting are discussing changing the zoning there. And it was kind of shot at us like you're going to violate the board agreement. So, I mean, you've been having discussions with Sussex. Obviously, you have a business park next to them. So you might know more about this than I do as far as whether they're going to be willing to or not change this over to a BP district or not. I have no idea. But I will tell you they did bring it up in the last meeting and kind of shot it in our face that you guys are looking to do this. My response was the applicant has every right to come and ask for a change. That's what's happening. It's due process. It's what happens when you do that. So, but I mean, the main reason for my comments there is also to show that anyone moving in the area that decided to look at the future land use plan and sees this as residential, you got a complaint. You do. But the reason why it was the way it was is we couldn't change it. The Waukesha County, I don't know if you can go back to the Waukesha County plan, Dan, the blue map. This is what Waukesha County identifies. I don't know if you can point it out in there, but by 164 and K. That entire area is what Waukesha County is identifying as prime lands for industrial development, commercial development. That's huge. That's a lot. And that has all been envisioned with the town of Lisbon per the board agreement to be residential. Now, a lot of that with the board agreement was if you limit the town of Lisbon to residential, chances are the industrial commercial is going to go to Sussex, and they see that as a higher tax generating entity. I'm not here. We don't go out looking for developments in the town. We don't. We're not that kind of community. People bring applications to us. We don't go out looking for subdivisions. We don't promote them. We just, hey, you're applying for it. This is we're going to look at it, and that's our job. So that's why we're here tonight for this. This is a quandary. I mean, and we all have to sit here and think about this. And I mean, Waukesha County has very clearly stated they believe this is where they should go. But on the other hand, we had a map here that said this was going to remain residential. So we have to look at this and decide what we want to do.
If I can, Sharon. Dan brought it up in terms of what the study says. And so why did Waukesha County pick this land? I think that's one of the things
something that should be discussed too. Mm-hmm.
And so Waukesha County actually went through in their suitability analysis methodology as part of the plan that you probably all have. It says that they looked at a bunch of different things. They looked at the natural resources. They looked at whether or not the soils are hydrated, so whether they were wetlands or not. They looked at the sewer service area. This land is already in the sewer service area. So they looked at the sewer service area. They looked at, was public water available within a half a mile? Yes. Where the street and highway access? Was it close or within a half mile of the state highway? Yes. Other transportation, was rail available? No. Is there transit service available? No. But those are minor considerations, considering that we're in a town and the village area. And then more importantly, as they go down, they talk about its proximity to an existing business park as a huge aspect, because then there's the ability to say, hey, I have some here, and I can have suppliers in this business park could help me in this business park, and their proximity is extremely important. And then the next one after that is the ability for the property to be tipped. whether it's done in the town or done in the village, does the village and or the town have the ability to tip? Yeah, so they went through this, and then they talked about consistency with local and county comprehensive plans, and then are there conflicts? And certainly, there's a conflict. There's a border agreement. It's in conflict with that. So part of this whole thing, and yes, the village was copied on this application because of the border agreement. And so it's a process, and we fully understand that. You know, we know that dealing with this and dealing with the Brown Farm, as with anybody else dealing with anything else that's part of the border agreement, is a process, and we're ready. We know this. We don't need this done tomorrow. We just would like to move through the process, and we'll be patient and take care of it as part of that.
I mean, that's a valid, as far as the location of this, it's a state and a county highway, and it's next to existing business parks. That's why this is identified. I mean, the long and short of it is, it has good access.
The problem here, though, that I'm thinking is right across the street, on the south side, okay, you've got the subdivision, and they've got the road going into it, which I know the county likes to have roads across from roads. But anyways, I don't know if I'd like to live in those first couple houses with having car lights come in, depending upon what's going into the business park. If it's towards evening, and in Wisconsin we get our early winters and it's darkness, and I'm thinking of car lights and traffic patterns, these people are going to get lights in their house from automobiles. That I'm not real happy with that.
That is a concern that if and or when we have the ability to come in with your blessing, to come in with a final plan. I mean, again, we're doing land use right now, and then we're doing rezoning right now. You know, we're fully, you know, if it says, hey, you know, we think that in this area we want you to turn or something so that you're not facing, or we want a berm, or we want more landscaping, those are all things that we can address as part of the full site plan. And we agree, absolutely. It is our, you know, one of the things that make what Vanguard does is we listen to the neighbors, and we listen to how we fit. We may not agree that in all cases that you know, should we be here, and everybody, you know, does everybody agree? No. But we do listen and say it would be better if you did this. Sure.
Okay, well, that's just one concern of mine.
Just,
you know.
if that were to, just to address that a little bit, if that were to become a subdivision, it would have similar with car lights. The only thing is you don't know what's going in here for a business park. You could have 600 employees where you'd only have 55 homes, so it's, you don't know, but you still have it.
And this access, you know, the way we have it is the one of the things that we thought about, and we did think about how trucks and things would be using. They're probably not, I can't say they're not, but they're probably not going to go all the way down Highway K to Mercuro in order to get into the sub. They're going to want to enter off of 164, which will have a traffic signal eventually, and then the other southern end of Business Drive, which is now called Highlands Drive, or will be changed to Highlands Drive, will have a traffic signal there as well. So trucks, semis, always want to use a signalized intersection in and out. So those are the intersections where you're going to see all that, and if anything, you're going to probably have employees and stuff like that. But again, it would be no different than what a subdivision would do at any one given time.
Okay.
What's everyone's feeling still? Ed, this is why you make the big bucks.
Yeah. Okay, the county is clearly on the maps that we were given, and as Dan has explained, it's in blue, so it's set aside for, I'm going to say, light industrial development, or it was suggested through SORPAC. Interesting that Sussex is saying, Mr. Chairman, that we're violating a border agreement when they benefit from, eventually, they benefit from a higher tax, I'm going to say a higher tax base or tax return on the industrial park that's being developed in phase 1. There might be an opportunity for multi-type of residential, in other words, a condominium possibly development in phase 2, which would take Mr. Lake, I assume, as he described, out of this discussion. I think the water I'm thinking the water issues have been addressed. I know, of course, there's always more runoff if it's light industrial. The way the road is proposed, if it was light industrial, the light industrial, in my mind, should be to the north and to the west of that road, and more, quote, labor and shipping intensive or noise should be to the south, the southeast corner of the parcel, to mitigate the noise that might travel, because obviously the noise in this region, despite the fact of how we are growing, noise still travels. I don't know, Mr. Chairman, with the ongoing discussions with Sussex, where do we stand on this? I mean, can we actually do anything this evening?
So we've obviously had our attorneys on this, so depending on which way the Plan Commission wanted to go tonight. I have a recommended motion if we were to move forward. If we didn't move forward, there was no need for one, but if we were to move forward, it would be contingent upon Sussex approving theirs, approving it also on their end. So,
Okay.
because we obviously do not want to break the border agreement. We haven't broken the border agreement. We're never going to break the border agreement. So,
And we don't want to be accused of breaking the border agreement. And the Soar and Woodard issue would be cooperating, goodness gracious, with Sussex, because it would be Soar and Woodard through phase 1 into phase 2.
correct. We have sewer capacity. We do not have water. That would have to be some kind of negotiation with
Okay.
Sussex for water.
All right. In terms of traffic impact, if it was light industrial, I'm going to go out on a limb and say the possibilities, the impact of traffic may be less than if it was condominium or single-family homes, because the average single-family home in Lisbon has 2 to 3 cars easily per household. And obviously, if there's teenagers, there's more. So your traffic, obviously, you're going to have businesses of all types of hours, but your traffic may be less. So possibly that addresses that concern. I don't know how it would fall out in terms of property taxes, i.e. total money returns to our community, the town. It might be a wash. It might be more if it was a light industrial district. I would, I guess I'm on a fence here. It's a very complicated issue when I looked at this. I would, however, Mr. Chairman, I'd be willing to, at this point, proceed.
I'm not opposed to this development or moving forward to the west here. I can appreciate leaving the existing third northern section as is. I do have a little concern in regards to residential directly across the street to the south. Again, I'm not opposed, but I would like these things taken into consideration in the future.
Pretty much the same. I think there's just enough buffer between the existing residences along Richmond Road that make this work, since it's one of the more restrictive business districts that we have in the code. And as long as we, like Chad said, as long as we're careful with the final plan and take care of the subdivision and the residences on the south side of K, I think I'm good.
Jane?
Well, I think everything has kind of been said, and I think you've heard our concerns, and you've heard the concerns from the people. And as far as the noise is concerned, I think you will have less noise in this area than, frankly, you do if you have a subdivision across the street, because I happen to live on a farm where it was farm across the street and it was developed into a subdivision. And now I have lights over there. People have lights on at night, and you have cars coming in and out, and it's progress. So you have to learn to live with it. But I would like to see that roadway. I am concerned about the subdivision on the south side and cars. otherwise I guess I can go along with it as long as we can keep the, I agree with what you said, keep the northern section as is presented as a buffer, yes.
Brian, anything else to add?
No, I can reluctantly go along with this. The buffer on the north side is, if it wasn't there, I'd probably be against it, but I can go along with it.
Dan?
I just had two follow-ups to two comments that were just made. From a screening standpoint, as you remember during the Casey's development, the amount of screening that was required as a result of our design standards in this special district is quite extensive. And so as each development comes in, they're each going to have to meet screening and buffering and trees, shrubs, all those landscaping requirements and berming requirements, way more than any of our other districts in the community. So from that standpoint, for the homes that are across the street, you're going to see each development come in and they're going to have to comply with some elevated screening and buffering requirements as they would come in that BP district. So that was one I wanted to add that to that one. And then also from a noise concern, the BP district is the only district that we have in the town that actually has noise standards and decibel requirements at the property line. And so there is a measurable standard that must be met so that noise pollution does not leave the property line from an individual business. So I did want to make those two comments as well.
What about the rock underneath? Is there limestone underneath there? Have you run into that on the corner?
Sure there is.
Because we seem to have quite a lot of that.
Well, that's one of the reasons why it's 2/3 and 1/3. I mean, it goes uphill, but there's a rock shelf that cuts to it and it goes up. But in the Sussex side, yeah, we found actually we made some money off that deal. It was cheaper for us to dig it up, crush it, or blast it, crush it, than it was to buy it from the land quarry.
Yeah.
Oh, so that's what you're doing with all that rock.
So we're keeping all of it on site so that we can use it.
Okay.
But it allowed us to take a couple lots down to where we wanted to. In most cases, the bedrock is 8 to 15 feet down. Okay. In most cases, but there's some nodules that sit up every once in a while. And in the case of where we were in the village of Sussex, that went right to an area where we were putting utilities, and so they had to cut a hole 20 feet down so that utilities could
go through. Because we have found, because of the land and stone quarries to the east there, you might get some reverberations because we've got them all the way further west from you where people have gotten rattled when things go and blasting is occurring at the quarries. And I hope that whoever is going to be building in there is cognizant of that fact.
And we did blast that. We did it for 2 weeks.
Yeah.
But we were required to fully notice it. Everybody was notified when it was going to occur, and I think that the drillers and the blasters were very good. At notifying all the neighbors.
Yeah.
Sure. No issues were involved at all.
Okay.
So we did.
I live just down the road from this, actually, on Lisbon Road, soon to be named Amazon Road, or Amazon Way. So I drive by this all the time. I mean, obviously, lived here my whole life. Quarries are moving closer to me. I mean, I understand the progress end of it and all that, and I wish they didn't, but they are.
Mm-hmm. And is your property value going up?
It has, actually. Does it ever go down, Ed?
No comment.
So, this is not ideal, but I understand, we had a meeting with Waukesha County yesterday, talked to them, or not yesterday, was it? Yesterday or the day before. We talked to Dale Shaver about this and back and forth, and we went back, we explained why things were the way they were, what the process was, and how come the town's land use plan didn't change and everything. And I do acknowledge that there is a complaint, though, as far as that, but I do also see that this is something it's beneficial to everybody in the community. I mean, it's going to bring some jobs in, and I think if you keep these buffers, which we're going to be here to make sure you do, in place, I don't think it's going to be a detriment. Now, moving down further, I don't know. I got no comment on that at this time. I don't know if I agree with Waukesha County and everywhere they put it over there, but this property does fit with the neighboring site there. So, I mean, I'd be willing to put this in Sussex's ballpark, obviously. There's no guarantees on this. I don't know what they're going to do. I don't know what they're going to ask for. I can tell you from a town board perspective, we don't plan on giving up much.
Understand.
So, Anything else from staff? Kevin, anything?
Nothing, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, I think you've covered all the concerns, and I think any motion that you make is going to be contingent on a major one border agreement, so.
Right. Anything else from the Plan Commission?
No.
I'm going to make the motion to recommend to the town board approval of the request for Mark Lake on behalf of WP Property Acquisitions LLC, property owner Betty Brown Slayton Living Trust for the property located at North 55 West 25299 Richmond Road, tax key LSBT 0273.998, to amend the comprehensive plan from low-density residential and other open lands to be preserved to industrial and low-density residential, subject to the amendment being approved by the Village of Sussex, as this change modifies Exhibit H of the boundary stipulation and intergovernmental cooperative agreement dated 1/22/2001, and subject to the approval of the Lisbon-Sussex Joint Plan Commission and Waukesha County. Is there a second to that motion?
I will second that.
Second by Ed Nelson. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 6-0. The next portion was to rezone a portion of the parcel from 810 to BP and C1, and recommendation of the town board of the same. Dan, did you have anything else to add on this one? On the rezone? Does anyone have any other questions on the rezone? I'd make the motion to recommend to the town board approval of the request for Mark Lake on behalf of WP Property Acquisitions LLC, property owner Betty Brown Slayton Living Trust for the property located at North 55 West 25299 Richmond Road, tax key LSBT 0273.998, to rezone a portion of the parcel from 810 to BP and C1, subject to the approval of the Village of Sussex, the Lisbon-Sussex Joint Plan Commission, and Waukesha County. Is there a second to that motion?
I'll second.
Second by Chad. Any other discussion on that motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 6-0. Talk to you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Item B, discussion and necessary action on the following request from Quick Trip Inc. for the property located at North 67 West 27619 Silver Spring Drive, tax key LSBT 0219.994.001, 0219.994.002, and 0219.994.003. We have a, number one, a 3-lot combination certified survey map, and we have a conditional use permit amendment, and then number 3, we have a site plan and plan of operation amendment. Good evening.
Good evening.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As you just mentioned, we got 3 items up for discussion tonight: a 3-lot combination CSM, conditional use permit, and site plan of operation. Although I think in the application packet it may have said sign plan or site plan is the wrong site. So site plan of operation. On the map in front of you, we do have, you can see the 3 parcels that are identified. The existing Quick Trip parcel is on the westernmost lot. And then there's 2 additional lots that the applicant and Quick Trip has purchased to be a combination here. There is one remaining portion, or one remaining lot from that original CSM, and that would be the parcel that is immediately adjacent to Lake 5 Road. It's an important point to note on that one, that parcel also does have an access easement through these parcels to this main drive. And so from an access standpoint, I don't believe you would see an access point closer to Lake 5 Road than what you actually see today, and that's what the applicant is proposing, is to continue that access point, but reconfigured and slightly widened. It also does have access to the county highway to the south as well, so you kind of see those 2 main drives remaining, but important points to note, as in the application packet, there is no access to Lake 5 Road directly from this parcel, and that's an important point because that was raised up during that public hearing, so I want to make that clear right from the start on that one. In front of you and in your packet is the ALTA survey. The ALTA survey was prepared to identify all of the encumbrances on the site, and that's when we take a look at that as well. We had our team kind of make sure that we were identifying some of those items, and so the applicant did submit that. So up tonight, as you can also see on the map, is just the general zoning district. We are in that B2 zoning district. But from the lot combination, from an overall standpoint, we found that the CSM met quite a few of, I guess you would say, the technical requirements of the CSM. There was a couple conditions, and I believe the applicant does have my review letter as well. I can go through those conditions. I think I do have them listed in the packet. But an important point to note, potentially, or first important point that I want to bring up is anything tonight should also be contingent upon Waukesha County Highway Department or DPW reviewing and providing their additional comments as well because of that access point. So that's my number one comment on that one. But from an overall standpoint, the other comments are just, again, surface and technical nature that are very specific to the town code and may not be seen elsewhere. So going through those, it'd just be identifying owners of record adjacent unplatted lands, stating that the CSM must identify the right-of-way widths or easements to those boundaries, and if they can't, or I believe they were identified on the ALTA, so it's just bringing them from the ALTA onto the CSM. The CSM shall identify the type with elevation of existing street pavements. That's a very specific one to the town, and the applicant had them in the civil drawing, so again, it's probably just bringing them over into the CSM. Also, the CSM shall show the size, location, invert elevations of the existing sanitary or manholes or culverts or anything else in the immediate area. Again, the civil plans and also did show some of that information, so again, it's just bringing it onto the CSM. I would recommend that information be provided on a separate page just for clarification purposes, and so there's that. The CSM requires to show the proposed septic or whatever other facilities that are planned to be used. It is shown on there, but it did not show kind of the location of that on the CSM. It was again in the civil drawing. So again, just providing that information, knowing that Waukesha County is going to end up reviewing that because it is a environmental health department review. So again, it's just contingent upon their review. As part of that one, soil test will probably most likely be involved because you are doing your new location, and so just providing that add information along with it. The existing freestanding sign location, because it is existing and it is structured, should also be included on the CSM. I know the applicant has provided a sign location review, so just bringing that current sign location on the CSM. So those are my technical review comments, and then any additional comments that would be provided by the town engineer or any other town staff. So on the screen are technically my 4 recommended conditions, but they are contingent on those other comments that I just touched on. So our first condition typically would be the developer satisfying all the comments that I had just stated, as well as any additional comments from town engineer or other town staff, meeting the land division checklist and approving bodies and anything else that would be involved in that one. So you can kind of see that one, kind of a longer message, but it is our standard land division message. Petitioner shall on demand reimburse the town for any costs that are incurred as part of this process. Any unpaid bills owed to the town would also be taken care of at that time. And then the last comment that is applying for and receiving any town board of appeals, plan commission, town board, or any necessary waivers. If at any given time during this follow-up review they can't comply with the requirements that are kind of stated forth in our town code, they'll have to come back and just state that waiver requirement. You have that on your agenda tonight from another development that they came back and are requesting waivers from that if they can't comply with those requirements. So they do have that opportunity. So with that one, from a technical standpoint, keeping the CSM separate from the discussion tonight about site plan of operation from just a lot combination standpoint, providing those comments, we would recommend approval subject to those comments. And again, keeping the site plan of operation separate, we are strictly just in a lot combination discussion right now.
Any questions on the lot combination portion?
No.
This one's probably the easiest part of this whole deal.
No.
Okay.
Do you want to vote on separately?
We'll have to vote each of them separate. Do we want to do a motion now or later? We might as well do one now. Any other questions on the
item 1?
Item 1.
No. I think it's pretty straightforward. And obviously they already own the property. So
Does anyone wish to make a motion on item 1?
I would, Mr. Chairman. I would move that the request from Quick Trip, Inc. for the property located at North 67 West 27619 Silver Spring Drive with an LSBT of 0219.994.001 0219.994.002 and 0219.994.003, that 3-lot combination certified survey map be approved as recommended with town planners' recommendations or comments.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Brian.
Does this go to the board, or is this just okay for us to? Does it have to
The
be?
certified survey map, I don't remember if that one goes to the board.
Certifies,
Does that go to the board?
all of your land divisions have been going to the board.
I would think.
Okay.
And this will go to joint planning with Merton as well, so.
JPC Burton.
You can add that to your condition if you so choose.
Do you want to add that to your condition?
That also would be. that
Contingent upon the joint planning committee with Merton.
Yeah, I have no, because obviously it.
It will whether or not you.
It's
do it
going
or
either
not.
way.
Yeah, I mean, the station service is also Merton, so yes, no, I have no problem.
Second.
I'm good with that.
Okay. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 6-0. And item 2 is a conditional use permit amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm going to take the CUP, site plan of operation, as kind of a combined discussion here at this point, because oftentimes the conditions that are in the CUP will also be mirrored in the site plan of operation. So typically, the town has taken those as one item. So the applicant is here tonight. If the committee would like, he can either give a presentation, or I can kind of go through through it first. It's up to the Plan Commission.
Dan's doing a good job.
Go ahead, Dan.
We pay him well.
All right, so
Go ahead, Dan.
in front of you, as I mentioned, are the 3 lots up for discussion. The applicant did state during the public hearing that it would kind of be a 2-phase process. Part of it would be building first, and then demolishing the existing store and kind of working quickly to kind of get that store up and running with minimal downtime. The applicant can touch on that a little bit. I think Dan and I were a little surprised when they talked about how you guys worked that so quickly, so that I think you may want to ask some questions about that. In general, the proposed use is the same as what's there now. It's just a different configuration, expanding on the number of pumps. Existing operation, also taking a look at important part that typically gets brought up in this one is the number of full-time and part-time employees. The applicant has provided a range, and I think that just ebbs and flows with the market economies and the times of year. But also the hours of operation. The applicant has listed 24 hours a day. So the Plan Commission, I will leave that up to the Plan Commission to engage in that discussion because of where the Plan Commission has sat in the past and the concerns from neighbors typically in that case. Total number of parking plan, we didn't have any issues with that one. We did notify that there are some outdoor storage of materials, but not uncommon to a gas station, which is going to be the ice chest, the LP tanks, the firewood, the salt for water softeners. So that's all things that have been approved in the past through the town as applicable outdoor storage related to a gas station or convenience store. So from that standpoint, we didn't have any issues with the outdoor storage. Outdoor lighting, the applicant did submit a lighting plan or with a photometric plan, but it didn't have the specifics of those individual lights, and so you'll see in one of my conditions is just providing that detail. So I did want to bring that up. So out of all those pertinent kind of review items, there's a little bit more in depth that I'll go to here in a second as I go through my review and my conditions. But overall, you can kind of see the existing site. I had the air photo up there before, but you can kind of see it in a engineering drawing. The second view is kind of the proposed, and so you can kind of tell where items do tend to shift and expand. So if you can follow them, showing up on here?
Yes.
All right, there it is. Here we are with the existing location, and as we switch off, your existing location kind of sits in kind of this area here, fluctuating. Drive aisle to remain, it does be widened, but it actually becomes more of a standard drive aisle at this point. So as you can tell, it's kind of a more tapered drive aisle here versus as we move it into a new development would become a more configured drive aisle at that point. To the south, again, working through a more configured and a more easily accessible location. There is that access point to the south to the south for Mary's Custom Storage that is maintained because that is an access easement on this one as well. So you can kind of see some of the information that's displayed on here. The applicant can touch on those individually if necessary. I did provide the elevations as well. Important point to note on this one is what is the front elevation here actually isn't facing the street. It's actually facing the pumps, and so that's an important distinction here. What's actually facing the street, I believe, is the kind of the left elevation or south elevation. So the applicant has done a job to address the street, but the Plan Commission may, as you've done in the past, may wish them to kind of address the street a little bit more. As you saw on the site plan, the pumps are actually left of the building, which I actually am thankful as an urban planner. Not having pumps in front of a building is actually something I encourage, but actually having the building up front. So addressing some of the building facade issues potentially could be addressed at this time. But overall standpoint, four-sided design, brick design. Also, the brick enclosures for the trash is something that the town has requested in the past. So the applicant has already proposed that. So you can kind of see in the rear of the building, there is the fencing require screening, but it's actually the rest of it's actually tucked behind this brick wall here. So we actually have a full bricked wall screened area. So that's not something that's typically seen that we've seen in the past in past applications. And so in general, the pumps are pretty standard size, are pretty standard pumps from a structure standpoint. The town Plan Commission in the past has requested that to match the existing design of a building. So that's going to be up to the Plan Commission's discretion to figure out does the pump match does the pump as an accessory structure match the existing structure or the proposed structure. So that'll be a discussion point. I did also include the sign packet. We didn't have a signage application, and as I assume as most operations in most gas stations, the sign package, official sign application package, comes a little bit later as things happen, because in case of building switches, it's one less thing that they'll have to amend at this point. So as things move further along, we do have a proposed sign package, but the application, it would, I guess you would say, come at a separate date. The town is also working on that sign code update, and so at this time we may actually be, by the time we get to the sign package, maybe further along in our sign code update, and maybe even make it a little easier to get through that process than actually coming back to the Plan Commission. So just want to make that aware. The zoning code does have two specific requirements when it comes to the CUP for gas stations. That is, no gas pumps or other accessory equipment shall be located no closer than 15 feet from the base setback and 50 feet from the offset to the side and rear yards. Underground storage tanks. I want to bring our attention back to this site plan here. This underground storage tanks we think is about 45 feet, and so again, a small change would have to be to shift that at least 50 feet from the property line, and so that's in my review letter there. So everything else seems to be offset more than 50 feet from the line, but according to the scale drawing, this one was about 40 to 45 feet. So that's one of the requirements, and then the other requirement is no lighting shall be installed which and permitted that creates a hazard of traffic or nuisance to the surrounding property, and all lights shall be shielded, baffled, and to avoid hazard or nuisance. And so while the schematic plans show that there's no light pollution leaving the property with 0-foot candles at the property line, the town typically requires a little bit more detail with the style of lighting that goes along with that one. So outside of that one, we didn't have any concerns directly related to the code requirements outside of those two items. And then so some additional comments that are, I guess you would say, outside of the code but inside the site plan requirements are, again, that front elevation, showing building height dimensions on the elevation drawings, and so we can make sure we do have those as well. The fuel canopy as shown exceeds the 3% total size of an accessory structure, but that's again because our code doesn't actually differentiate between accessory structure and what a fuel canopy is, and so typically in the past the Plan Commission has stated that that is an okay standard to exceed. But the Plan Commission also then has to weight the height requirements. Typically an accessory structure can't be higher than 15 feet. Again, the town code didn't anticipate fuel canopies as an item, and so we have to just either grant that waiver beyond the 15 feet, which is what you've done in the past for an item. And then an important point to note is just labeling on the site plan, just making sure that we do have that 66-foot wide access easement necessary to access lot 4. Obviously, there is as I go back to the site plan here, you can see we do have the 66 feet that pretty much aligns almost identically with the front edge of this parking bay here. And so just more or less leaving on the site plan showing where that easement would be so that we have it on file in our files for that. So just adding that access easement on there because it is recorded. So those are, I guess you would say, the additional review comments. And so those are going to be the things that are going to be kind of the high-level items. Our recommended conditions of approval, which typically go with a use of this nature, are going to be subject to our town engineer and town planner comments. The condition of use shall apply to these lots and shall be transferred to the new parcel upon recording of the CSM. I don't want the applicant to have to come back here after the CSM is recorded because the parcel numbers changed. So let's contingent upon that. CUP shall not be granted unless the combination CSM is approved and recorded by Waukesha County. Obviously, it would be going across across property lines as proposed, and so we can't move that forward until those property lines are no more. The physical development and operation of the conditional use permit shall conform in all aspects to the approved site plan of operation, and the town retains that right to review the business operation in compliance with its approved plans. The approved site plan and CUP shall be on file at the town at all times, and so we've, as a town, been better at keeping all those items readily accessible in case anybody has questions, and so we need to have that on file at all times. New and existing buildings proposed to house the conditional use permit shall be constructed to meet our Wisconsin Commercial Building Code as approved by Brian. And then working our way through, the applicant shall apply for and receive and maintain any of the applicable state, county, and federal permits if necessary. Copies of those permits and evidence shall be submitted to the town upon request. The owner and operator must keep a copy of the conditional use permit on file kind of at all times, available for inspection during those business hours. The fire chief shall inspect the premises prior to occupancy permit and correct any issues before that permit. Same thing with Brian and the building inspection side of it. Town engineer may review the storm water plans to ensure the site is in compliance with respective codes. Non-objection from the town engineer, correction prior to that permit. Hours of operation I've left blank at this point because that's a conversation for this body. But I would say whatever the result of that conversation would be included in there. All lighting shall be hood and beam, this is not to create an undesirable glare and location. So again, once we have those, we can confirm that. All vehicles and equipment must access the site through the approved locations that are listed on the site plan of operation. And then the conditional use permit is non-transferable to any future owner, and so if any future owner was to come in, they would have to come in for their own conditional use permit at that time. And then there shall no outdoor storage of materials except for those listed on the site plan, which would be the ice chests of fire, the LP tanks, and softener salt. So again, those standard items. And then finally, because of the issues, or I don't want to say issues, but with the relocation of the septic information, Waukesha County Environmental Health may review and approve the uses of the property as well. So I know that's quite a few conditions on very specific to this one. The last two are going to be, again, adjacent to that business signage, so coming back in with a signage application. And then if there's any aspect of this conditional use permit or site that is in conflict, we do need to make sure that is addressed at the Plan Commission level, as well as potential with Waukesha County if it's environmental health related. So I know that's a lot, but it's our review, and so if there's any questions to that one, either from the applicant or from the board, I can respond to those questions.
I think the first one we're going to want to talk about is the hours.
Want me to start?
I did have one follow-up to that one. No car wash is proposed.
Thank you, Dan. In terms of hours of operation, I would strongly recommend that it would be 5 a.m. to 11 p.m. I think with, of course, the pumps being available for credit cards usage outside of those hours. I think even though the store seemingly is a gold mine, your marketability prior to 5 a.m. and after 11 p.m. falls off quite steeply, if in studying that location in that store. So your prime time is from 5. I would suggest it be from 5 a.m. closing at 11 p.m. with access to fuel via obviously cards.
Okay, Chad.
Is that all you have?
Okay.
Oh, I have a laundry
So-
list, but we're just talking about hours, right?
Don't
Hours right
Or
now.
should
We're
I,
talking about hours.
Hours right now.
hours right now? Okay.
All right.
I'm gonna agree with Ed. We're setting precedents in the town as of now to not hold 24-hour stores. I don't think this will be a huge impact for you. This isn't off of a main freeway exit or something to where you're gonna have random people stopping in to use the restroom or get a coffee or whatever at 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning. So I'd like to stay at the limited hours. I am okay with the pumps being 24 hours.
Mark?
Is there any kind of study or information that you guys generated that is behind the request for 24 hours, or is this just a standard request that you make for all your stores?
Yeah, Quick Trip standard hours are 24/7. It's kind of a known brand, known item that our stores are available and open 24/7. Most of the stores we have in the area are 24/7. Milwaukee, Onwalk, most of the stores. The only ones we don't have are Program and Omni Falls, from my understanding, closer to the interstate, in that area. But Waukesha stores, most stores we have in the area are 24/7. Really what it is, you're right, you're not generating a lot of business in that overnight shift, but you do get folks that are out plowing our driveways, out doing things in the middle of the night that they might need fuel or a hot cup of coffee or a clean restroom. And that's really what we offer, and also it's ability for us to inside stock the store, clean those type of things overnight hours, which we can still do even if the store isn't open. But another benefit we do kind of offer is if someone, when it does slide the ditch and public safety needs someone help with that, Quick Trip is a known place where you can go, be warm, be safe, and kind of accountable and available. So as a built-in kind of commodity, if there's nothing available 24/7, that can be more of a burden on our public safety officials. But that's, again, more of not saying it's absolutely necessary, but that kind of is typically where we operate and how we typically operate our stores.
Anything else, Mark?
Nothing else. I'm kind of torn. I mean, I can see the benefits both ways, and it's certainly not a noise-producing type of business when it's open. And the closest neighbors are all industrial. I mean, there's not a lot of people that are going to hear somebody slamming the door from the wind, even if somebody were to go in there overnight.
Well, you've got houses right across the street, though.
Yeah, if I could add,
Got
Mr.
two
Chairman,
subdivisions.
there is, obviously to the south of the location, there's a large storage area. The other dominant factor is private homes, especially to the north and to the south of the site. We've had another competitor. We set the hours on that. That's why I would recommend we stick with again, 5. And I appreciate the fact that you've laid out the corporate philosophy, but at this point, I'm still pretty set in the 5 a.m. to 11 p.m. time frame.
Does that 5 to 11, is that with people, that's what I'm worried about, with people like making the coffee and prepping up and getting the garage ready? They can't be in there until 5 o'clock in the morning? That's my
I
question.
think we allowed.
What did we do on
We
KQ's?
had that discussion with the other entity.
You allowed employees from 4 to midnight, customers 5 to 11, I believe.
Okay,
Yeah.
so that's
Thank
what
you, Dan.
I was gonna ask,
Yeah.
so that it would be 4 to 11 for workers and customers from 5
To 11.
11.
4 to
Or
midnight.
4 to 12, yeah.
Right.
Okay, otherwise, as far as noise is concerned, will you be having music at the gas pumps? Because all of a sudden, right now, they talk to you.
Very loudly sometimes.
Hit the mute
Oh,
button.
yes, and that's what was wondering if that is going to be allowed.
Yeah, the current operations have, in our newest fuel dispensers, they have a little screen on the TV screen, if you will.
Yeah.
And then there is ability to communicate overhead if people want to pay inside, they can hit the pay inside button, and then they
Yeah.
authorize the pump and they say, welcome to Quick Trip, see inside the pane on front door or whatever the particulars are of what they're using.
Yeah, you can mute that though, I assume.
Yeah, they've got the ability to use it or not use
Or
it.
not.
It's not constantly playing overhead music as some of our past decades where the stores had music playing at the overhead speaker.
We don't need that.
Okay, that would be my only concern.
Brian?
I'm okay with the 5 to 11 only because, you know, there are people to the north and they're kind of lower, so it could get some headlights. I mean, but the people on Lake 5 Road, they're up pretty high and they're shielded by a line of trees. So I guess out of consideration to the neighbors, I'd go with the 5 to 11 as well.
What about the 4 to 12, so that?
Yeah, 4 to 12 is fine
Okay.
too, yeah, for the employees.
All right. The
So
front,
I just want to make one more comment.
Mhm.
So we got people inside except for 4 hours. And even during those 4 hours, we're letting them sell gas at the pumps unattended. I think we're creating a real narrow gap there for very little reason. Just my thought.
But isn't that the same thing we're doing for Casey's?
I don't think the
Yes.
two stores are in the same place. Casey's is literally right next to a house.
House, yeah.
I mean, there's literally neighbors right next door to them. There's not such a scenario here.
It is a good point, because if you take it case by case, this is a different scenario. So that's a good point, Mark.
Yeah. Well, the location is different, but then we have the problem, we worry about the precedent we set, because obviously Casey's will come back to us and said, hey,
Well, but we consider it based on the
Location.
individual circumstances.
Sure.
It's not every single, we're not passing some sort of a change to our ordinances that says every single gas station's gonna get this.
do we really want that poor young lady to come up from Northern Illinois one more time?
That would be up to her, I guess. I just think that we're carving out such a small little exemption here. The only thing we are saying is they can't have anybody inside from midnight till 4.
That's right.
But it's okay if we have the headlights and the car doors slamming and sales at the pump and all these other things, and even though we're hundreds and hundreds of feet from the nearest house.
But also, I think sometimes you will find that in those places, that's where the troubles start, with people who have maybe dishonest things on their mind that will come at that time of night, and I don't think we should help that along. So,
I mean, I think you can have problems. People are gonna cause a problem, they're gonna cause a problem. I don't know if it's a time of day thing. But it's just my observation that we're not in the same scenario there as we were with Casey's.
Well,
Literally the neighbors on the other side of the fence.
And to what you just said too, I mean, I guess that contradicts kind of what I said, because if they're still gonna sell gasoline, they're still gonna have headlights on the people to the north. Right?
I mean, yeah.
So, yeah, north.
it just changes the scope of, you know, if you're open 24/7, you're gonna have food, you're gonna have a lot of other amenities that are gonna draw people
it's
to that
just gonna be-
location.
It's
While
cars.
gas is gas. I mean, you're not getting gas unless you need it. You know, you're not gonna have a 3 o'clock in the morning, you're hungry, I'm gonna go get gas.
Yeah, would,
You know,
well, would the corporation be amenable if we trialed this for a year or two,
tried what?
the 5 to 11?
I don't think they're gonna have a choice.
I mean, it's, can always come back and say, well,
I mean, they could always come back in the future and ask for an amendment.
Yeah, that's
I
what
gotta
I'm
tell you,
thinking.
for me, I'm gonna go against Mark, which is a little unusual in this, but
That is.
I am, I'm gonna, the 5 a.m. to 11 and the 4 to 12, I'm in favor of that. I think Merton's gonna be in favor of that too,
okay,
very much so.
well, I stick with my original contention of
Okay.
5 to 11.
So
Mr.
we could
Chairman.
allow you to be customer hours from 5 to 11, 5 a.m. to 11 p.m., but you could have workers there from 4 a.m. to midnight. Okay? The facade was the other one?
I did want to make a clarification on that one. Merton will see the CSM, they will not see the actual plan of operation typically, in this case, until there's a different border JPA agreement in place, if there was. So just a clarification on that one.
All right.
The other my other concerns or concerns for the Plan Commission of what you've typically addressed with individuals are going to be, if I can get to it here, hold on. Again, the site plan of operation being, or the site plan being amended to move those tanks about 5 to 10 feet, depending on what the scale drawings were, and then the additional foot candles. But outside of the code items, it's going to be the Plan Commission approving the fuel canopy to exceed kind of 3% of the total size of the existing structure, and then also the maximum height of that one. So if you do approve any motion, make sure you state that that is acceptable at that point.
So the canopy, everybody okay with the canopy being 3% larger and higher than it's supposed to be?
Yes,
proposed?
well, 3%
Okay.
no. And in reference, Dan, the site of the fuel tanks and hence efficiencies of refueling, it has to be better than the present station. Because the way the present station is designed, it's a total pain in the whatever, and it's a bottleneck, both for the operators of the station and for the customers. I assume
these ones would still be inside of the drive area. So if it's potential just to shift them to keep out of that 50-foot, whether or not it's a reconfiguration, that'll be up to the applicant to figure out the best means to do that. There is some additional space, so I'll let the applicant kind of speak on that one if possible.
Yeah, just a question, Dan made a point where it says no gasoline pumps or other accessory equipment shall be closer than 15 feet. They said that not 50 feet from the offset of the side and rear yard. And the next sentence says underground or above ground storage tanks shall conform with state standards.
That's
is that a spacing? Like, I guess
no,
the way I read the
yeah.
first sentence is maybe it's stuff you see above the ground, not encroaching close, and then the second sentence maybe relates to where
the state standards is applied to the actual type and construction of the actual underground storage tanks. The location is still applicable to the town code. So, as I mentioned, it was close, almost to the point of the width of my scale, trying to figure it out what it was and this it was only a couple feet off. So, just to try to comply with the town code.
okay. What, Dan? I don't know the specific specifications. But you just laid them out quite clearly. Presently, where the fuel truck, where they have to refuel their station, when the truck pulls in, it becomes an obstacle course, both for customers and for the delivery for the driver.
Yeah.
It is very actually. I think it's dangerous, as the way it stands right now.
Sure, but that'll be addressed in this.
That'll be okay.
Yeah. Either way, the applicant is proposing a new development. Even though it's an upgrade, it's still, as you voluntarily tear down and build new, you do have to comply with the standards that are
Certainly.
here at the time. So I did drive the site again today, and I agreed. I had to dodge some cars and even a cop car as he was kind of coming in a little too quick. But outside of that, nope, I agree with you on that one. And then, so the only other item that typically the Plan Commission has talked about with an applicant of a business is going to be talking about the street-facing facade and making sure that we get quality design. And
The canopy.
And the canopy. So those are the two items that you've dealt with in the past.
We typically with the canopies ask that on the pillars going up, do it in brick, some kind of brick facade on it, similar to the building or same construction as the building actually.
Because it's considered an accessory use, the accessory use shall be constructed with the same materials. So in this case, typically what the Plan Commission has done, I'll stand up here, typically has recommended that there be a brick support that comes up to about the same height and then a pole, the remaining structure going up.
No, that's definitely something we can work with staff on. But what we'd like to do is, if we could, see if there's anything on that plan, but if we could set it to a certain height, perhaps 9 feet or so, which would kind of tie in with the height of the pumps that are there.
That's typically what we look for.
Yeah, not the whole way up.
It doesn't give the
No, it doesn't have to go. That was on my laundry list, Mr. Chairman. Should I go over my laundry list?
Well, let's do it
in sequence.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, how tall are your pumps?
I think we typically say about 9 feet, so it would have a nice, just a little bit above the pump height.
The pumps are set on a pedestal too, so that's the reason why it's not a 9-foot pump. It's usually about a 8 and 3
So
inches.
everybody good setting it at 9 foot with the brick?
Yes.
All right.
And if we're talking about, because I was going to mention that, if we're going to brick veneer where the pump area is, where your foundation sign with your, yes, I would suggest that brick veneer go up to the bottom of the sign itself where it says coffee, not just be, your metal standards. Okay?
And they haven't submitted a sign.
A sign application did not come with the packet, so we reviewed it as a conceptual at this point, but we wanted to
Right.
make sure, as I mentioned, most operations of this nature will wait on their sign packet until they get a little bit further along so that they're not making changes to their sign packet. If something was to happen at this meeting that shifted a design, so that's the reason. That's what we anticipated the reason was at this point. So.
And you had pointed out in the front of the building.
Yep, I'll pull up that elevation for your discussion. So, as I mentioned, this is the west elevation, this is the north elevation, which faces the street. South elevation really typically isn't visible from Marine Drive just because of its long drive location, but it is four-sided design, so even if you did see it as you were approaching from a north and then traveling south direction, you would still see some the brick-facing facade, so 360-degree design. But on the north-facing facade, typically the Plan Commission has requested a higher design elevation or elevating the design of that elevation view, unless you're comfortable.
This may surprise the commission, but I think it's a good idea to turn the building the way it's set now instead of facing Silver Spring, realistically. And the only, as I'm looking at the structure, the only, I'm sure the commission will like this, the only suggestion I have is if there's any feasibility to changing the roof color from green to red. Or is green your standard color for this stock store?
You want it all red?
Well, the roof color.
I love red. It's a lot of red.
The whole brick.
The building is red.
It's a lot of red.
Yeah, I think we're comfortable kind of knowing what we've done in the past with the green. I've got a sample board, just kind of the colors and materials. It's kind of
I see red there.
And there is red, but I just kind of echo some of those comments. That'd be a lot of red. And I'm not sure that
the brick color is
it
red.
would accomplish what you're looking to
yes.
get to.
Okay, well, withdraw that. We'll stick with green.
So I think what Dan's looking at here is, do we want to make higher end on the front end of it, I guess, some kind of added feature or?
Sure. Maybe I'll just explain kind of what we've done. Typically, we wouldn't have a gable element on that side. We've added that gable element and kind of upgraded that because we knew it would be facing Silver Spring. What we've done also is add those transom windows in that area below the gable as well that typically we wouldn't have. So we had to get a little natural light. What we didn't do is add more of true glass windows because we have shelving and equipment in that area.
Sure.
In our experience, where that's been required at night, even during day, you see that shelving through the windows and kind of doesn't give you the look and aesthetics you're necessarily after. So with those transom windows, it gives you the light, gives you kind of a nice feature on that side of the building to dress it up a bit without causing issues with seating with and kind of cluttered up windows that maybe not be the best aesthetic look that we appreciate as well. So.
If I might, another thing that Dan mentioned was obviously egress, access and egress to the site. Presently, both the exit and entrance onto Silver Spring and into Moraine Drive are really inadequate. And in some cases, the one to Silver Spring is dangerous. Because even though the speed limit has been lowered on Silver Spring, it's during rush hour time, there's a lot of traffic. Is there any plan on widening the present, the two exits, where the one that goes out to Moraine Drive and the one that goes out to Silver Spring?
The Silver Spring one's going to be wide.
If you can see my finger here, and then go on the next one there, you kind of see that's more of a straight access point.
Yeah,
versus that
and
long
how much wide? What's the width going to be, Dan? Do you have that in your notes?
I have it in my
No
file.
Okay, it would be that much.
2 fingers.
Yeah.
Typically, we're looking in the neighborhood of 35 feet.
Okay.
A good width.
Yeah,
And
I'm just.
I might not have the exact dimension, but typically that's somewhere we're looking at that. Really, what's going to happen if you go back to the current situation, it's a little bit of a.
Yeah, it comes out at a very strange angle.
There's a lot of radius in here and a lot of funny angles that don't give people more traditional four corners type,
Right.
straight type view. And with the new design, what we've done is, again, the same thing on the south side of Marine Drive, it's got a little bit of an angle to it and a lot of radius. With the new design, kind of flipping the new ones, a lot more traditional, straight, angular lines that give people ability to be more familiar with what they're used to. And also, we've got more space. We've got a lot more space in here for queuing. So if cars are coming either in or out, they've got an ability to queue and get in line, so to speak, and not have the more or less wide open area that is now.
Well, the traffic pattern needs to be improved because, especially early morning, when various businesses, there's a major arborist in the area called Wachtel, and the trucks, I mean, there's trucks coming and going. It creates quite a problem for the traffic pattern. Another issue on the south, on the north entrance exit, and Dan mentioned this also, are we going to be able to improve the lighting on that? Because right now, it is extremely dark when you're exiting or entering at that point.
Yeah, we do have a photometric plan.
I'm thinking of downlighting so
Right.
you can at least see the road bed, especially in bad weather.
Right, there's considerations for lighting right at the lot line, but I think our photometric plan does show lighting along that drive, both out to Marine
And, out to Marine Drive also? All right.
New light poles at about, I think, 18-foot height, so again, they're not your typical street light, 30 feet high, they're set at a height where they're casting that light down to the specific pavement in the area, as opposed to, I call it the car dealer effect. If you go to a car lot and they've got the light shining, each and every which way. This will be different from that.
The other, obviously, the new store is moving east. The property gently slopes from, southeast to northwest. In periods of heavy rain, because we are dealing with a subdivision to the north, the water flows into a large culvert area, swale, and then goes underneath Silver Spring and into the subdivision that's north there. We can see the catch basin. We're obviously adding a lot of new surface area that's impervious. I remember reading that you are going to address that by having drains that will be, quote, more adequate to go to the catch basin area, because right now a lot of the excess water drains off the Silver Spring entrance exit, goes into the culvert or goes into that swale and rushes underneath Silver Spring and towards that subdivision. So
sure, I guess I'm not a complete expert in stormwater, but I can give you the kind of Cliff Notes version. The new site would have curb and gutter throughout the whole site.
Okay.
With catch basins. So the idea is it's designed to, any stormwater that's coming on from the surfaces would be controlled, piped, and sent to the detention basin out in this area here as well.
all right, and
This will all have to be approved. I mean, our engineer,
Certainly.
Waukesha County, I mean, we've gotten, like we've talked about many times in the past, stormwater is something we've gotten very good at.
yes, and I agree, Mr. Chairman, and I assume also that you've been made aware of a letter from Waukesha County by a Mr. Jeff Osgood. Okay.
What about the front facade? You good with it?
I know this will come. I don't want to change the brick color. I know it's amazing. We've obviously, I'm not going to say you guys are going to populate all of southeastern Wisconsin, but you've seen your format of your stations, and I like the colors that you're presenting. In other words, it works.
So you're good with it?
Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm good with it, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Chad?
I'm good.
Mark?
Yeah, I'm good with it, particularly your landscape plan meets our code and looks as nice as what you got in the picture there.
Okay.
Okay, no, everything seems fine as long as you meet Dan's concerns, which are innumerable, but they're, and ours.
I'm good.
All right.
No question.
Yeah, if I could just on
Yeah.
item 16 on Dan's list of conditions of approval, it talks about non-transfer to future property owner. Wondering if we could add a sentence that would say, notwithstanding the foregoing, this CUP is transferable to related entities in case Quick Trip puts this land into some LLC or different entity than the typical name you might have. That's all we ask. It was transferred within the company.
It's still a Quick Trip, but just under a different name of the company, more or less.
A related entity. It really is.
I don't have a concern with that.
Okay.
I think we can add that.
Board?
No, sounds reasonable.
No.
All right.
I have an unrelated question if it's a quick answer. What is Quick Star?
Quick Star is Quick Trip's brand name in the state of Iowa.
Okay. Thank you.
I can give you a longer answer.
Nope, that's it. That's good.
Must have already been a Quick Trip.
Good to go there.
Just curious.
What else we got, Dan?
I was just a clarification. According to the scale drawings, it was 30 feet entryways for Ed.
Okay.
The new proposal, okay. And I like the fact that they're straightened out, because again, right now, it's messy.
And also, clarification, I don't have a lighting plan on the screen, but it's in your packet for the public who's here. Pole here, pole here. So for entry points, for lighting.
And any lighting on the actual Marine Drive would have to be addressed by the county. I'm assuming, is that what you're referring to, Ed, was light on the actual road?
Well, as you approach the entrances at night, or especially again in bad weather, you can't see them. I mean, I know we've got, all kinds of neat headlights on our cars in this day and age, but it's just, especially if it's raining or if it's snowing, those are, at present, they are dangerous egresses to the station.
Okay.
So, and it sounds like it's being addressed in the new proposal.
Ed, have you got this sheet? Because it shows where everything is.
Not as nice and big as that one, but I've got the paper.
Any other comments or questions from the board? Concerns? Staff?
No, I just have my comments here that if you were to make a motion tonight, in addition to the comments that I have submitted to you tonight, the discussion points were also the additional brick on the pumps that you would have to add to that motion. And Kevin, I'll give Kevin credit where credit is due. He also mentioned you probably should add a condition of approval on there that occupancy won't be granted until the other building is demolished, just in case. That, obviously it's within the applicant's applicability. Now the hard part about that one is you may want to add a time constraint to that one, because otherwise we could potentially just have 2 stores remain open. I don't think it's within their with what they want to do. The challenge that they're going to run into is they're going to be inside that store, upgrading the store, getting things in it before they demolish everything. So I don't know if that's a discussion point that you want to talk your process with them a little bit, because I think it's an important discussion to be had. Because otherwise, if you guys were to walk away, somebody else picks it up, we could have two buildings on site before anything happens. So just maybe talk to your operation of how you do that, and then we can.
Sure, we've done a couple of these before, but essentially what we plan to do, I mentioned during the public comment, build the new store, construct the new store, in the vast majority of the site, open the new store, have that available, then demolish the old facility that's there. And then there'd be some rework. Again, you kind of see the plans where it's overlaid. There'd be drive aisles, probably a little bit of curb and gutter paving, that type of thing that would have to happen in that area. So our plan would be to sequence this, so we'd have old store operational, new store being built, new store opens and occupied, so I guess we'd need that occupancy.
Maybe a window time frame in there when that building must come down.
The store would be open, the gas pumps, there might be some transition with the gas pumps where they're located relative to the store. And then we'd sequence that, so then there'd be a second phase where that demolition would happen and that rest of the site, minority of the site, but the rest of the site would be constructed and finished. So we want to keep that service available to the community as best we could, and our time frame is to keep that as short as we could. Typically, it's in the order of under a month.
How much time you need?
Yeah.
That's what we got to put in here. So you're going to need a couple months?
Well, I just have one question before you answer that. It shows that you've got your septic system is going to be going where the old store was, or part of the driveway. So how are you going to coordinate having the bathrooms work in the new place while you have the old store up?
Right. And it'll be a coordination issue as we get into final design, but there will have to be new septic system installed as part of the initial new construction, so we'll have to coordinate that as well.
Okay, because you'll have to get something from the county for me as well for issuing a building permit. You know, for somehow there's going to be some kind of a transition, unless you're going to have the, like I said, you can't get occupancy without the bathrooms working. And so I don't know how you're going to put this mound system, or I think it said mound system. I can't see it on my computer up there. I don't have my glasses, but whatever the septic system is, it would have to be in place for you to be running anyway.
Correct.
So sorry about that, Mr. Chair. I just wanted
No,
to
that's
bring
an
that up.
important point. Brian, I think they're going to figure it out, because if the way they transition from PDQ to Quick Trip, and watching that, the efficiencies or the economies of scale that you pulled off there, I think they can do this. But of course, your point is well taken, because yes, thank you for mentioning that.
What period of time do you need if we want to put a cutoff time on this? That this must be done within 2 months, the destruction of the original building. What do you need? 1 month, 2 months? Give yourself some.
Sure, I would say 2 months would be appropriate.
Play. Okay.
So a 2 month span where you can operate at the same time, essentially, is what you're looking at.
Yes, sure.
Okay. All right.
Is it, I have one follow-up question to that one. From that standpoint, from an operation standpoint, would you say that and I came across this as you were talking, the stores themselves, you probably only have one operational store,
Right.
but they technically will still be both up. You're just transferring product from one to the other and stuff like that. So maybe the condition should also be at any given time, only one store should be in operation, and then within 2 months, you're...
Do we really have to get that in depth though? Well, I mean, they're not going to run 2 stores at the same time.
We will have public in one building at one time.
Okay.
Right. I mean,
Yeah,
I know what we're saying, but I mean, I think we're getting nitpicky.
Mr. Chairman, stranger things have happened.
Yeah, that's true too.
At the most, they can only do it for 60 days anyway. It's up to the board.
It's in our interest to get rid of it as well.
Yeah, very quickly, I'd imagine.
Yeah, I would imagine, Mr. Chairman, in terms of that structure, once whatever's out of there that it's, they can utilize, that building would come down in 2 or 3, at deconstruction rates today, that store will come down in 2 to 5 days. I mean, obviously, there's the gas tanks, et cetera, there's all that.
They got 60 days.
Yeah, 60 days, certainly.
What else do we need to address? Did we hit everything?
I think that's it from the additional things that are included in my comments, but I would just clarify, make sure in your motion that you're also clarifying the hours of operation. That is it.
So we got the hours of operation. The condition of occupancy is 60-day time period.
And then he wanted that change in.
Number 16.
Change in number 16. The canopy.
Height.
With the brick veneer.
And the height.
3%, and that's in his
That's in your comments, isn't it?
So we have to take 2 and 3 as separate items. So number 2 would be the conditional use permit amendment. So that would be the hours of operation. I mean, just in the conditional use one, the hours of operation would be the only one we'd have to.
Hours of operation should be in the site plan.
Yep. In the site plan?
Yes, I would keep that out of the conditional use permit. Everything else can comply with, or can go with the conditional use permit, but the hours of operation.
Site plan of operation, I'm sorry. I spoke just the opposite of that.
Yep.
All right. I make a motion to approve the conditional use permit amendment for Quick Trip Inc. for the property located at North 67 West 27619 Silver Spring Drive. Tax keys as listed, LSPT 0219.994.001, 0219.994.002, and 0219.994.003. With everything that was listed by the engineer tonight, town planner tonight, in his comments, including the 3% variance on the canopy plus the height variance, the canopy change as far as the brick is listed, the condition of occupancy at the 60 days, you can't operate You can operate both same, they can both be there for 60 days. And they changed item 16. That should address all of those, correct? Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Ed. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 6-0. I also move to approve the site plan and plan of operation amendment, noting the hours of operation being 5 to 11 to the store can operate, and then 4 to 12 you can have your workers present. Is there a second to that?
I'll second that, Mr. Chairman.
Second by Ed also. Any others that cover everything on that one?
Did you, sorry, I missed, did you mention the 24-hour pumps?
And I would also say the 24-hour a day operation on the pumps. Is second okay with that?
I am.
All right. That should cover all that. Any final discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
For the applicant's clarification as well, the site plan of operation stays at the Plan Commission. Conditional use permit does go to the town board. So as a clarification.
Okay. Item C, discussion necessary action on the request for Joe, hopefully I don't say this wrong, Maluka, on behalf of Beeler Construction Inc. for the property located at North 48 West 22953 Commerce Center Drive, tax key LSPT 0287.986 for a site plan amendment to construct a 94 by 204 foot accessory building. How you doing?
Good evening.
All right. Hit it, Dan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The applicants are here tonight to discuss their proposal with you as well, so I will kind of keep an overview. There will also be probably some stormwater or any additional comments related to engineering, so the town engineer is also here for answering those questions. On the screen in front of you is going to be the site plan as well as the zoning for the area. We're in the Commerce Center Drive area, the M2 zoning district, or most, I guess, say, wide open industrial district standpoint. So we are there with some additional C1 that does touch the property as well. In general, there is in that C1, there is also adjacent to that some regional stormwater facilities. So I did want to just mention to those. The proposed addition would be for vehicle storage as proposed in the operation. I'll let the applicant touch on that one a little bit in greater detail if the Plan Commission has any questions. This had a site plan of operation that came back before the town a couple of years ago. I don't remember how many. 2017, before my time. But it was for additional operation, kind of storage and vehicles. So some of this may be familiar to you as a Plan Commission. I did include the actual building plan in relation to these into the site plan. You can kind of see how some truck parking kind of relates to that operation. Overall, they also did include the building elevations. It is inside of the existing business park, and so from a standpoint of materials, typical of what we've seen in that area, it does have a kind of a brick facade on the bottom, holding it, or I guess you would say holding it to the ground. I guess, you know, giving that base feel of a building with some additional materials and the steel materials above. So part of that one, overall, from a standpoint of similar operations that we've seen in this area, I'll let the applicant touch on their use specifically, but from an operation standpoint, from a conditional or from a site plan of operation, the site plan itself met the majority of our review comments, but we did have some additional pieces, and so I'll go through kind of the recommended conditions, and they were similar to the ones that we just saw previously. So I'm going to kind of go through them. The applicant shall comply with the site plan and operation aspects previously approved on the previous submittals, but also the site plan shall be on file at the Town of Lisbon. Town retains the right to annually review the business operation in compliance with the approved plan. Fire chief shall inspect the premises to ensure the site plan is in compliance with codes and prior to any occupancy. Same thing with Brian. And also I would actually add into this one the town engineer. I know it's not in my comments there, but in relation to some of the stormwater stuff I'll get to here in a second, I did want to make sure that is also added. No outdoor storage of material, none of it being proposed at this time. It's all internal to the building. And no trash stored outside the building except for the use of existing on-site waste containers that may be there now, so no new additional spaces. The applicant has listed hours of operation, Monday through Saturday, 4 a.m. to 10 p.m., and this shall mean the time that employees and/or operators are on site, so anybody there. Vehicles shall be stored on a hard surface, and any vehicles susceptible of leaking fluid shall be interior to the building while they await repair. This is similar to what we do for any operation that's vehicle-based, and so making sure that we are being talking up our fluids. There'll be no parking on any road right-of-way, and that one's our standard there as well. No storage of gasoline on site. I believe that was part of the discussion point for a previous applicant, and so again, keeping this one to no storage of gasoline. Submittal of a lighting and fixture plan to the town staff for review and approval. They did provide the information on the type of material, but we'd like to see just making sure that we're not exceeding those property limits. And then for any vehicle maintenance, if there is any vehicle maintenance elsewhere on site, typically sometimes there is that as an ancillary use, that those fluids be stored off the ground and secured and disposed of properly. Again, just with a vehicle operation that could happen, and so just want to make sure that we are covering ourselves there. And then Waukesha County Environmental Health may review and approve any permits necessary for the subject property. Also, in case there is going to be any additional business signage, that comes in as a separate item that will not proposed at this time, but if there is, that would come in as a separate item. I think I have a double comment in there with the keep on file at all times. And then our last two conditions that the approval is granted and stated for herein, any changes or alterations shall come back to the Plan Commission. So that's ultimately what those last two conditions get at. But I did want to touch on the stormwater a little bit here. So I think you did a little bit of a review on something this one.
Yeah, actually, we did do a review, sent over some comments on August 23rd. At that time, we had asked for some information regarding the stormwater, making sure that that regional pond would be able to accommodate current requirements for the town in Waukesha County. We just recently received that information, where at a quick look at it, the curve data that was provided for the stormwater does meet that. I would like to probably take a little bit more time than just today to look at that information. But otherwise, besides that, there were some other site conditions that we were a little bit concerned about regarding some of the wetlands that were adjacent to the property and protecting those wetlands, which at this point in time with erosion control set in place, everything looks to be in working order. So.
Okay. How you doing? Good. It's been a long night already. All right.
No
you want
questions, right?
Right. So you want to kind of just do a little overview of what the building's going to be used for and everything, and
Yeah, primarily we came in, 2016, we built together the addition to the existing building was there for primarily equipment, to store equipment inside and materials, and our material usage has increased a little bit, and we ship out of for the whole Midwest out of that facility, and we need more material space. So hence we're going to build up a regular utility garage for the trucks alone for themselves as we're proposing, and have a separate materials and a separate truck, facilities.
Okay.
Is that mic on? Can everybody hear?
I don't think that one's been working,
May have turned
but nobody's been complaining.
turned itself off. So
Yeah, right.
Needs a new battery.
Possible, but the building itself is just going to be an accessory building. It's going to match the existing building and all the identical materials. So there's a masonry curb wall, a pre-engineered metal building above, and a single slope roof. So.
Okay. Questions from the board? Brian?
Joe, correct me if I'm wrong, when you guys did the old building, or the previous building, not the old building, the previous building in 2016, that was?
17.
17, okay. Didn't they redo the stormwater? Didn't they move it from the center of the lot? I'm trying to remember. And didn't they move it over to the lot line to go past your building, I thought?
There was
Maybe
a catch basin right where the addition was going.
Okay.
So it was moved to the west.
Okay, that's what happened, and then
Correct.
and then the retention pond, I think, is that C1 area that he
Right,
showed
the
up there.
retention area is common to that center and development,
and
Okay.
that's to the south.
Gotcha. So that.
So it is sized big enough to
Mhm.
take this.
Yeah, because I knew there was something redone. I just wanted to kind of give you a little bit of background on what happened back then, because I wasn't totally involved in that, but I thought something was redone back then already. So that was it. That was it for me.
Okay.
No comment.
Nothing.
Ed?
And it's just primarily going to be used as a repair facility. I'm sorry, storage. I'm sorry, I was looking at, I was confusing in the plan of operation, I was confusing item 16 and 17 with item 3. So it's just simply for storage.
Indoor storage.
Yeah.
Okay. No further questions.
All right. So we'd want to, if we're going to approve this, approve it contingent upon town engineer review and approval.
That was my additional comment.
And what about giving our water person time to relook? He wanted.
That would be Mitch.
Oh, okay.
That would be Mitch. All right, anything to add from anyone? Somebody wish to make a motion on this item? I'll move that we approve the request. Maluka, is that it?
That's correct.
For request for Joe Maluka on behalf of Beeler Construction, Inc. for the property located at North 48 West 22953 Commerce Center Drive, tax key LSBT 0287.986 for a site plan amendment to construct a 94 by 204 foot accessory building, contingent upon approval of the town engineer and all the other recommendations set forth by the town planner. Is there a second?
I will second that.
To cover us on everything? All right, any other discussion?
No.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 6-0. Thank you, guys.
Thanks for your consideration.
Have a good night.
Thank you.
Item D, discussion and necessary action on the request for affordable signs and lighting on behalf of Gordy's Concrete Pumping for the property located at West 232 North 4950 Corey Corners Parkway, tax key LSBT 0284.994.006 for a sign permit. Good evening. How you doing?
Good evening.
Can I hand these to myself? Oh, absolutely. I think we have them though.
Yep, they already have it.
Yep.
So, and I have it on the screen here.
We amended it, it's 11 feet short.
Oh, there you go. Okay.
Thank you.
This one's 11 feet shorter, that's why.
All right.
Give me a second, I'm doing math here. All right. All set? All right, thank you, Mr. Chair. In front of you is an application for a sign for Gordy's Concrete Pumping. Important point to note on this one. This building came before you several years ago for its site plan of operation, building approval. At that time, it did go through Sussex JPC, and I think you guys went through a little bit of a ringer on that one at that time from a design standpoint.
All right now.
So I do want to make you guys aware that this is in a special planning area from a design standpoint, not from an approval standpoint, and I can touch on that if necessary. But what I did want to touch on is here's the existing building. As you can see, they did also provide the elevation rendering of it. The town has a sign code, and from an overall standpoint, the town sign code is pretty standard for any type of business operation. In this case, the sign's pretty clear that the gross surface area of a sign shall not exceed 50 square feet or 85% of the tenant's lineal frontage. So in this case, it is kind of a large building. We are sitting here with a sign that looks, I guess you would say, sized appropriately to the building if it was to be a wall sign. However, the design standards for that district also state that the only sign that's listed in those design standards is a monument sign. And so it doesn't give any specifics to that design of that monument sign from a size standpoint, but we do have a neighboring property next door that also does have a monument sign that is also in that district. So I did have the map up here. Back several years ago when the town was working with the Village of Sussex, we voluntarily agreed that these properties along here, so this would be Storage Works, Cordy's is here, then the vacant lot here, these
would be applied to the, would also apply to the additional design standards. We voluntarily offer that to them, and so this is part of our design requirement. That's that Exhibit E inside of our zoning code that I mentioned when we talked about the BP district and the other districts. This is those same design standards. And so in this case, there isn't a wall sign that's permitted inside of those design standards. Now, it's up to the Plan Commission as the sign committee, I guess you would call it, or that approval authority to make that determination of applicability of size and type of sign. So in this case, from those design standards, the applicant wanted to come and talk to you because they would like the wall sign, but we are kind of in that design standard area that talks about monument signage. That monument signage is not meant to be I don't want to say is not meant to be highway directive, and that's the reason why you see it adjacent to the storage works. Yes, we do have highway visibility, but it's not. It does have a frontage road, and therefore that's the reason why those were given sign monument standards and not wall sign standards. So I can touch on some of those items, but again, those are the design standards that are set forth in front of us. So from an overall standpoint, overall size, this one is not in compliant with our total 50 square feet or in the type of sign. So outside of that, it's going to be up to, again, as the sign committee, you guys have the ability to talk through with the applicant their kind of request. And so outside of that one, I don't have any other additional comments, but I can be available for questions regarding the zoning or the sign code as well as the design standards.
So
I usually don't chime in first here, but I'm going to tell you, I think it looks good.
me too. I was gonna say, so basically, he's supposed to have a monument sign, but he's got a wall sign, and we can say it's okay, in layman's terms.
As a committee,
As a committee.
They have to express to you why they would like that sign and state why that does not meet those, or why they won't meet those design standards.
So that's the question.
Yeah, you laid out the conflict. The placement of the building with the frontage road and where it sits off of 74, it's good, because if it was any smaller, you wouldn't see it, because the building is, I don't know how many hundreds of feet it is off of the midpoint of Highway 74, but
So what Dan's saying is supposed to ask you, why do you want a wall sign instead of a monument sign?
To break up the looks side of the building, that's 9,000 square feet.
yeah.
I was hoping to get a permit for the leaves, branches to the other side of the tree also.
See, I was going to ask for some blue lines on that building, but it didn't have, never mind. Yes, something happened to that tree.
It looks good, break things up, you know, it's nice looking building coming down the highway, you know.
Yep.
I think a monument sign would kind of get lost in the.
Yeah, I think
It would have to be so.
Yeah.
It would have to actually have to be bigger to draw any attention, whereas this is up elevated and not as offensive. Is it, Dan, did you mention the lighting? Is it going to be backlit, or there was some mention of LED, or is it going to be uplit or downlit?
He's the sign guy right there.
The sign guy.
It's illuminated, it's LED inside.
Inside the letters.
Oh.
Okay. So it's that type. All right. The sign guy. Okay.
Yep.
Hello, Mr. Sign Person.
It's Kenny.
I wasn't here when Storage Works came in for their sign, so they may, after seeing a wall sign, may also be coming back for, a wall sign at this point too. So just a FYI.
I don't remember him asking me that.
I don't know at that point. My only other comment.
74 side?
Yeah, this is the 70.
Yeah, it went from 149 square feet to 105 square feet with the new sign that was delivered today.
You're viewing that from the frontage road, not from the highway, by the way.
That's the facing south.
That's facing
West.
west.
It would be facing west.
Oh, the frontage, I'm sorry, because it goes around.
Yeah.
I like it.
Me too.
Ed, you good with it?
Yeah, it looks sharp. It serves the. I realize it doesn't necessarily fit within the paradigm, Dan, as you well laid out on our sign ordinance. But from the standpoint of this one particular building, where it sits, I would think it's doable without violating.
It's a yes?
Yes, it's a yes.
Okay.
I'm getting tired.
I was waiting for a sign to go on this sooner or later. I like the second rendition. I like the way you put the concrete pumping letters down across the blue line. Looks really nice aesthetically. So I think it looks nice.
Thank you.
Yep.
Good.
Jane?
Yeah, I think it looks good. I like that.
Brian?
I'm in.
Jim, you got a great building. You might have one of the nicest,
thank you,
if
guys.
not the nicest.
That's just right for everybody. Works for all of us.
I'm happy with it. I'm fine with all of it, actually.
Does that have to go to Sussex to get approved, or have you been approved by Sussex?
Sussex, I talked to Keystone Code, she said no problem. They actually allow you 500 square feet. So, but yeah, it's all set there.
Which is weird because this is our joint zoning that we came up with together.
Yeah.
Okay.
Go figure.
Because there isn't any standards, size standards in those design standards, it would default to the town standards, and that's the reason why it's here in front of you tonight. And as I mentioned, it was at that point voluntary design standards that the town is doing it on its own, so it would not go to Sussex for that sign review.
I'm going to make a motion that we approve the request for affordable lines and signs on behalf of Cody's Concrete Pumping for the property located at West 232 North 4950 Quarry Corners Parkway, LSBT 0284.994.006, for the sign permit as presented tonight with the new rendition and all the comments that were made here tonight. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 6-0. Thank you.
Thank you guys, appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you. Concrete is good.
My other page here.
Have a good night, fellas.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you.
Somewhere I lost my second page. Just borrow this one for a second. Until I find it. Item F, discussion necessary action on the request from the town of Lisbon for the property located at North 63 West 22039 County Road F, tax key LSBT 0241.999, to grant a waiver to allow a cul-de-sac 625 feet beyond the 500 feet allowed per town code, and recommendation to the town board of the same.
Hanover.
We skipped
I'm
one.
sorry.
Here,
Yeah.
Hanover Hills.
Request
I
from
apologize.
John Wild.
I didn't mean- Apologize. Trying to get. Discussion is necessary action on the request from John Wild on behalf of Hanover Hill Homeowners Association for a sign permit to construct a gateway sign on the southwest corner of Hanover Hill Road in County K. Put my 6-0 right next to the sign permit from the one above. Sorry about that. Go ahead, Dan.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chair. The applicant has submitted a entry sign for the Hanover Hill subdivision. You may recognize this application because I believe they were here about 2 years ago, 2 or 3 years ago as well. Again, before my time here, important point to note on this one is they previously had 2 wooden signs and then had voluntarily taken the wooden signs down as a result of deterioration, which is wooden signs just don't last. They had submitted a stone sign that was etched with their Hanover Hills, or Hanover Hill, sorry, name on it, and as a result, it was approved in an approved location outside of the vision triangle, and it does meet the height requirements at that time. That area does slope down from the lots down to County K as well, so it does have an opportunity for the appropriate height. Important point to note on this one, as I do have the images here, the proposed sign is, again, in the existing landscaped area. As they cut the signs down, they just didn't put 2 signs back up. They'd only put 1 sign back up, so they're here asking for that additional sign. That isn't allowable per our code. You are allowed 2 entry signs for each subdivision, and so at this point, the applicant has proposed a very similar size sign to it. It does meet our signage size requirements, provided that the base is no higher than, I guess you would say, the median elevation of as it slopes down, no higher than 1 foot above that one, so you're not sticking that on a 4-foot pedestal, more or less, and that's what their proposed sign proposal does not show that, so it shows about a 1 foot. It wasn't dimensioned, so I wasn't able to kind of verify that one, so I don't think you guys would be putting it on a 4-foot pedestal above the ground, so at that point, so. Yeah. So at that point, we don't have any objections to that sign at this time, just would like some, just some clarification that it wouldn't be on a 4 and 5 foot pedestal, but would match the existing sign.
The footing detail right there, it's not,
Yeah, it's below grade, it's just.
that's not, is that fine? Just as is?
Yep, and you guys just provided clarification that this was, it would be the height requirement, so I'm comfortable with that one at that point. So if it would have been an approval document, I could have, approved it by itself, but because of our code, it must come to the Plan Commission here, so.
Question, Brian? Jane?
Looks good.
No.
Good. Good. Ed?
Are you going to chisel the letters in the stone?
Yeah, we're doing it right now.
You're doing it as you speak, Hanover Hill. Are you just going to chisel them, or are you going to darken them, or?
They're darkening them, yeah, help us is doing it. They sandblast.
Okay, so you can actually, yeah, I like the fact that it's just not square,
Yeah, it's
that you put,
something that you can do.
okay,
So it's gonna mirror that.
all right. With the cardinal.
With a cardinal.
All right, excellent.
Good,
Okay.
Ed?
Good,
All right.
good to go.
Does anyone wish to make a motion on this item?
I will take the burden off you for a minute. I've been lazy tonight. I would move that the affordable signs and lighting on what? Item E. I would move that the request for John Wild on behalf of Hanover Hill Homeowners Association for sign permit to construct a gateway sign on the southwest corner of Hanover Hill Road and County Road K be approved per town planner comments
Is there a second?
and recommendations.
I'll second.
Second by Chad. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 6-0. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Now we'll go to item F. Discussion necessary action on a request from the town of Lisbon for the property located at North 63 West 22039 County Road F, LSBT 0241.999 to grant a waiver to allow a cul-de-sac 625 feet beyond the 500 feet allowed for the town code and recommendation of the town board of the same. Mitch, I don't know who's got this one.
Well, I mean, essentially, this is we've got some restrictions from the county of access points of this site. So in order to develop this site, we're looking at extending a roadway a little over 1,000 feet, and it would end up as a dead end with a cul-de-sac at the end of it. Town code basically reads that we can't do that. We can't exceed that 500 feet without asking for a waiver of that code. So.
Okay. Questions or comments from anyone? I'll move that we approve the request from the town of Lisbon for the property located at North 63 West 22039 County Road F, LSBT 0241.999, and grant the waiver to allow a cul-de-sac 625 feet beyond the 500 foot currently allowed per town code and recommend it to the town board.
I will second that.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 6-0. Excellent. Item G, discussion and necessary action on the request for Newman Developments, Inc. for the property located along Hillside Road, tax key LSBT 0205.995 and LSBT 0208.987, generally located on the west side of Hillside Drive adjacent to Beverly Lane. The recommendation of the town board of the same for the following. Chapter 12 Land Division and Development Ordinance Waiver Request for the following items. Section 7.03 sub A, cul-de-sac length on Ridgeline Court, 200 feet waiver, and Highland Drive, 360 foot waiver. Item 2 is section 2.06, lot slope for lots 15 through 18 and 37. Section 7.06, perpendicular lot line 21 and 22, 32 and 33, 35 and 36, 37, 38, 38, 39, and 42 and 43. And item 4, section 703 sub G, road tangent length for Beverly Lane entrance, Hillside Court / Beverly Lane intersection, Hillside Court cul-de-sac, and Ridgeline Court cul-de-sac.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The applicant is here tonight. At the last meeting, we had conditioned the applicant make revisions to their conditional, or to their preliminary plat. They have submitted those conditions as well, to those conditions as well as the waiver request to these items. And these are the items that, due to the design of the layout, wouldn't be able to meet our typical code requirements. I will state that the majority of these aren't out of question with current developments. These aren't out of line requests. The only one that I would say talks about a little bit outside of the typical kind of land division side of it is going to be the cul-de-sac length.
Fire department has stated that, or fire has stated that the length of the cul-de-sac is allowable or okay at this point because they did provide extra large turning radiuses on their cul-de-sac bulbs, and so I did want to make sure that was aware. As for the slopes on lots 15 through 18 and 37, that's going to be up to the Plan Commission, but primarily in this case, we would have kind of exposed basements in these kind of sloped areas, and I think that's what the applicant's intention is here. The perpendicular lot lines for the adjacent lots, and again, it's primarily because of just the configuration, and that's not unheard of, but at the same time, it's ideal to have a perpendicular lot, but if the Plan Commission wishes, they can grant those waivers. And then the road tangent length, the town requires a minimum 100-foot distance for that tangent. Again, it's just our town standard. We have waived that request in the past. It's up to the Plan Commission to make that determination. Ultimately, whatever would happen from here tonight would also then go on to the town board, because ultimately the town board is the one who grants those waiver requests. It must start here, though.
We heard the cul-de-sac length one. That one would be a little difficult after the last one. Anybody have any issue with any of these? Anything anybody wants to discuss?
You know, the magic thing was, Dan had mentioned there's no problem from the fire department, from Doug Brom, etc.
Right.
It's been cleared? Okay.
Joe, do you want to take these as one motion then?
Can we?
I think it would be fine if it's all
Kevin?
recommended.
I think it's fine.
You're not making any changes, so.
Right. The only concern that I would have is just on the slope requirement that Mitch sign off on it, town engineer sign off on it as far as stormwater, but I believe you've probably reviewed it already.
Yeah, we've reviewed it. Town ordinance reads that lot slopes can't exceed the 12%, I believe it is, and then 10% over 50% of the lot area. Waukesha County had brought it to their attention that some of these lots do exceed that, and requested that they would get the waiver from us. Overall, it's a stormwater management type thing, trying to watch out for the velocities of the water that we're sending certain areas. So I think that has been, the stormwater review has been completed, and I believe that they've got a good system or a stormwater plan set in place that will address any potential issues moving forward. So.
Mitch, question, because this was brought up at several of the meetings with the stormwater going out onto Highway 164, et cetera. It's not, I'm worried about the people who own the property on the other side of the road. And they were worried about more water going down into their property. Is that been contained, that it is staying where it should stay?
The stormwater facilities that are there are actually regulating some of those flows that come out of the subdivision. So there's overflow pipes that, you know, during certain rain events, we can control those peak flows, but there may be other events that you could potentially have some issues, but those are supposedly those events are few and far between, but they're more often nowadays than ever. So.
And those events would happen, and that overflow typically would happen regardless of if the development was there or not.
Correct.
So at this point, you're having to maintain the stormwater, your status of stormwater at this point too. So.
And you're satisfied also that the properties right directly to the south of this development are not going to get more water because they've had
correct
big problems there.
Correct. That they won't receive any more water. Correct.
Yeah.
Okay. Because that was certainly in many of the meetings we had, that was definitely a concern of the residents, again, that live south of the hillside property. Okay.
The only thing I can add is I don't have the stormwater management report in front of me, but it has been approved at the Waukesha County level by Ray Powdy of Land Resources Development. And there's a lot of tables and calculations in there, but as far as calculations and flows through the site, all of the 1, 2, 10, 100-year storm events are either at or below the levels of the current calculations, from post-construction to current.
Any other questions? I'll make a motion that we approve the Chapter 12 Land Division and Development Ordinance Waiver Request for Newman Developments, Inc. for the properties located along Hillside Road, tax key LSBT 0205.995 and LSBT 0208.987, generally located on the west side of Hillside Drive adjacent to Beverly Lane, namely items 1 through 4 as listed. On item 2, it would be contingent upon engineer approval and recommendation of the town board of the same. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Go ahead, Jane. She outranks you. I get it.
Yes, she does.
All right, motion made by Joe, seconded by Jane. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 6-0. Item H, discussion and necessary action on the request for Newman Developments, Inc. for the property located along Lisbon Road, taxi LSBT 0264.998.002, generally located north of Lisbon Road and south of Ainsworth Road, adjacent to Basham Lane, and recommendation of the town board of the same for the following. Chapter 12 Land Division and Development Ordinance Waiver Request for the following items. Section 703 sub A, a cul-de-sac length on Orchard Drive, 700 feet waiver, and Autumn Court, 100 feet waiver. And item 2, section 706, perpendicular lot lines, lots 9 and 10, 10 and 11, 15 and 16, 16 and 17, 21, 22, 26 and 27, 29 and 30, 32, 33, 35, 36, 41 and 42, 42 and 43, 47 and 48, 54 and 55, 59 and 60, and 61 and 62. Mike?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My only other comment to this one is the 700-foot waiver length is, so that'd be 1,200 feet at that point. That is a temporary cul-de-sac at this point because it's meant to extend into the adjacent property at that such time. So the applicant did provide, again, enlarged cul-de-sac at that time. So during our pre-development meetings, the fire did not have any issues with those at that time.
Any comments or questions from the board? Make a motion that we approve the Chapter 12 Land Division and Development Ordinance Waiver Requests for Newman Developments, Inc. for the property located along Lisbon Road, tax key LSBT 0264.998.002, generally located north of Lisbon Road and south of Ainsworth Road, adjacent to Basham Lane, for items 1 and 2, and recommendation of the town board of the same. Is there a second?
I will second that.
Second by Ed. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 6-0.
I'm recused. No,
5-0.
I'm recused because I'm a neighbor.
Item carries 5-0 on that one.
As
Jane
long as
abstaining.
Mitch is here, can I ask him, and the neighbors in previous meetings have always been questioning where the county put the road out on Ainsworth Road, because that's the lowest point on the whole property. And is there enough water, because I have not seen any water things on this development. Is that been taken into account, and how are they going to see that the water doesn't get pushed into the east to Zelmer's property, et cetera? I was just wondering how the water situation judged on that one, what you found, Mitch.
I mean, ultimately, the stormwater plan's been reviewed by both our office and Waukesha County. I don't know, Brian, there's so much development going on in the town right now that it's hard to remember specifically what's in place or what the design is. I don't have that.
So, I don't know if you can see that one, but I haven't seen a copy of the approved Waukesha County report or letter yet. So.
Have you guys?
Yes, this one, again, there's a lot of calculations and things that go into these that are way over my head as well. But this one is being reviewed by Alan Barrows of the Waukesha County. He's reviewing final comments and final reports before releasing the permit, which we anticipate in May. What I recall from the report is that in that corner of the property that you're talking about, they actually were able to soil borings and testings that were done. They were able to find some really positive results after going down depths of 6 to 8 feet and find more granular soils that could infiltrate. So part of the plan that I recall from that portion is that some of the ponds and retentions would be oversized and over-excavated to help promote more infiltration there. So it's a little less ponding, hopefully. That's, again, what I recall from reviewed, but as with all of our developments, the stormwater management plans, we hope that the end result and the way they're designed ultimately is to improve the overall stormwater situation for
Yeah, because there was,
everybody.
they had pictures from showing a lake, I mean, there was a whole lake in that area,
Yeah.
and it just,
Yeah, Jane's concerns are well warranted, because that
We wanna-
northeast
we
corner.
wanna- This is not up for discussion tonight.
It is not.
So we're gonna.
okay. Sorry
Okay,
about that.
strike that comment.
He was here, so.
No, I know, I just didn't want to, when it started becoming a discussion
Yeah.
point here, I want to kill that right now.
Okay.
So it was factual up until then, now, so, okay, thank you.
Okay.
I was doing
Thanks.
so good. Thank you.
Item 5, Town Clerk and Planner, A, overview of August and September planner appointments.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Dan and I have met with a handful of property owners and interested individuals. Just put the maps up here. No additional concept plans were submitted for any one of these items, but an applicant came forward to talk about the 164 corridor again, where Newman was about a year ago, to talk about that area. There was, we had an in-depth conversation. The applicant was I guess you would classify them as a home flipper company, but they wanted to get into the development community and into the development world and kind of diversify their portfolio. However, we made them aware of just what are the issues in this area, and that's water service, and so getting water service, and so understanding that this area from the town's perspective must be sewer and water because of we have the capacity, and this is the area that was slated for it. The estimated horizon timeline for any development in this area is likely 3 years out when you take a look at permitting, funding, anything else in that area, and that just was not within their time frame of actual development. So they also wanted to come in and talk why Newman's project didn't move forward, and that's what it was. Again, was timing, was water service in this area. So from an in general standpoint, if we ultimately want to see this area be developed, I think the town's probably going to have to take a kind of a heavier lead on providing some future evidence of water service here. Otherwise, any applicant who comes in here sees a 3 to 4 year timeline horizon of getting water down here, and they're not going to look at that. So maybe some pre-planning on our end if we truly want to see this area kind of be that hub of the community with a little bit more variety of homes and town square and stuff like that. Maybe we need to start taking a look at that a little bit more. We did the water study last year, but maybe the next piece of that one would maybe start thinking about location funding and stuff like that. So just a side point to that one is we've had a couple people kick the tires on this one, but every time they kind of get to the, well, how long before water, they tend to walk away at that point. So just a FYI on that one. The next one is just south of the community park, so the Lisbon Community Park. So we have 2 owners here of property, and so this is Oakwood Road here. There's an easement that runs or a pathway reservation, trail reservation that runs from here around this parcel here and kind of up this parcel here and then back down to the road down here. There's a reservation on those lots. The applicants have stated that they would like that reservation removed if it's never to be improved. And I don't know if the town's had it on their radar to improve, or even if it was in our knowledge that the trail reservation was there. I'm guessing somebody did a title search and it probably came up. And so as a result, the applicants have expressed the potential to remove that reservation. I can zoom out a little bit if I pull up an online map, but right now I just needed to get close enough so I could delineate where that pathway is. It pretty much follows the parcel lines, and like I said, it connects from the park kind of down and then off of just outside of Thousand Oaks. So they may or may not come in for that discussion point, but I did want to make you guys aware of that one. All right.
Dan, do you want any backstory on that very quickly?
If you got one, I'll take it.
The park board years ago, in looking for further access from Thousand Oaks to a community park, and this goes back, I believe, to the early 90s or actually even late 80s, consider that as a possible pathway. We now have obviously improved access via Oakwood Road and with our bike path connecting into one of the phases of Thousand Oaks. The homeowner came to us and said, is this really necessary? And chairman and as a board, we said no, and we would forward it hence to the full board. So we agreed no. We no longer need it.
So that would be a release document of some sort that we'll have to.
If you can do it by resolution.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
If they
Okay.
come, if they want it.
We had another individual, somebody kicked the tires last year on this one. Actually, the owner kicked the tires on this one last year. This is Joe Gregg's property, I believe, or it was, or it is still, but under current pending sale right now. It's about 20, 30 some odd acres, 34 acres. Village of Sussex, pretty much here. We got Good Hope coming through here, coming up. Important point to note is there's a lot of environmental corridors here. Waukesha County has shoreline jurisdiction that pretty much runs through here. There's a lot going on here. They're looking at purchasing this property and building a home. What they had described is probably somewhere in this area where it's not green. But then also potentially splitting it here or here for one of the future kids as a potential division. Because of the nature of it, you're probably only going to get 1 to 2 lots out of this one, just because of the odd nature of how much is unbuildable. This is in the Park and Open Space Plan as an acquisitionable item by any municipal jurisdiction. So there may be parklands that may be dedicated at some point or anything else like that. But they came in as a potential. They have an offer to purchase on right now. They're just doing their due diligence on it just to see if they could potentially in the future. From a standpoint of just process, probably. There's just a lot of hurdles that would have to happen at that time. So I don't see that one happening in the near future, but they did also come in to talk about one other thing, which was there is a shared driveway access that for these two properties that share. They wanted to talk about is there potential to use that drive as well. I said that's a private property matter. We would have to discuss that with those applicants at that time. And if you do come to an agreement, then we could talk about it at that time. But otherwise, they would have their own driveway access.
The comp plan shows us 5+ acres as well, so it's gonna be really hard to get anything else in there besides maybe two or 3 lots.
Yeah, so that was that one. A development request came from Forster up on the northern part of the community in Kew. There's about a 43 acre potential subdivision. So we have the I'm trying to remember what subdivision this one is. Presidential Estates, is that what this one is?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yep. Access points, potential access points in from there, coming in from the road, but then an adjacent 1 lot off County Q, so we don't have another access point. This one doesn't require this one does require, a comp plan amendment as well. So they will be coming in for doing some of those items, comp plan rezoning. Same situation that we've dealt with on a few of these. It was just 5 acres of land. They've had a planner appointment with Sandy also sat in on our planner appointment. They're actually coming in for a application submittal in the near future. So did they submit that one yet?
Yeah, the notices went out, so they'll be on the October Plan Commission.
They did meet the deadline to be on the October. So we'll see rezoning and comp plan amendment.
What road runs north and south there?
Yeah.
North Road.
North
North.
North Avenue.
Okay.
So that's that one. And that's about, how many lots on that one was it, Dan? It was, I think they modified from the last time we saw it, so I was trying to see what it was. Yeah, I can't see what the numbers are here, what the last number is from the last time they did it. 28, I think. 28 is on the bottom. 28 is on the bottom, so. Another subdivision.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah.
And then the last one that came in today, actually, was pavement maintenance, or
parking lot maintenance.
Parking lot
Parking lot
maintenance
maintenance.
incorporated. Important part on this one is we approved, when I say we, I mean the Plan Commission approved a site plan in 2017 for this building. So this building was constructed. 2014, sorry. This building was constructed. On that site plan was another proposed building here. Proposed building was never detailed. It was never included in a elevation drawing or anything else. It just says proposed building. They came in wanting to propose a building-ish thing, a salt storage for use. And so salt storage would be, in their minds, would be the concrete blocks, interlocking concrete blocks with a kind of a hoop structure over top of it for salt storage. We struggled to find a definition of what that would be under. The closest thing I came to it, and it's pretty clear in our code, that would be a contractor's yard. It is permissible in the M2 zoning district. I wouldn't call that a structure at that point, I would call it a contractor's yard. However, in the M2 zoning district, a contractor's yard needs a minimum of 5 acres, they're 2.5. So they may or may not be coming back with an actual structure, or not. So we're just not sure what they're gonna come back with. We need to do a little bit of research on our end a little bit to see if we actually have approved drawings for this one, but we could not find them in our files. We're still going through the big pile of files back here to figure out if we have any. But that's where we are with this one. So this one was a little bit more complicated. As I mentioned, again, the interlocking blocks with a more of a hoop structure on the top. So they want to talk about on that one as well. So that's the majority of those ones here. So
Okay.
that's all I have for that one.
All right. B, short-term rentals, Airbnb and bed and breakfast, etc.
Yep. This one is a little bit of a more, where our zoning code has not kept up with the current times. And so I'll touch on that here in a second. In 2018, the state passed a law in the budget that would limit the municipality's abilities to regulate short-term rentals. And what I mean by short-term rentals are the opportunity for somebody to rent their home for a X amount of period of time. In this case, we have from 1 to 7 days, a municipality can decide if it wants to regulate those uses. From 7 to 28 days, the municipality has very limited authority in regulating somebody from renting out a short-term rental. Whether or not that's a complete home or a room in their home. And so I did want to touch on that. Now, the state has said that you can put some regulations on it, i.e. a conditional use permit if you so choose, or some other mechanism, but not to the point in which it is overburdensome for that individual. So the state has created laws that have over-exceeded our ordinance, I guess you would say. So where this came up was Mr. Rush. Jeremy Rush has his in-law suite that he has, and he built out that unit above it. The town became aware that he was renting that unit out on Airbnb. So he was renting that unit out. We had a condition of approval that said it shall not be rented as a rental unit. Now, when I wrote that, I knew the state laws were there, and so I had interpreted, and when I wrote that, to be not a separate rental unit. Meaning he doesn't put a door on it and it becomes a whole separate, multifamily use at that point. At this point, he is renting out a room in his home, like others in the community, and this is the reason why when I dove into this one, we have some differences between the two. The town typically requires a standard bed and breakfast. We have that as a condition of approval in our code. Where that typically is, you can include one meal, breakfast. You're limited to 1 to 14 days within a 30-day period. Requires a conditional use permit, minimum outside modification, so we're not modifying the structure a ton on the outside, and Waukesha County approval is necessary because you are providing a rental opportunity there. The intent was to provide, and this is right from the code, travelers with a temporary accommodations, and is really to be in an existing structure of a historic nature. That's typically what bed and breakfasts are. In cases of the Rush, I would say that they have not violated their in-law unit permit. They do not, however, have a proper conditional use permit for a bed and breakfast. So if there's going to be a case scenario, I want to make sure we have a differentiation between the two. Is they're still in line in compliance with their in-law unit, that's fine. They do not have a conditional use permit right now for a bed and breakfast. They have submitted one now after we met with them. I did, however, want to make an important point to note here that we do have some standards. Our conditional use permit section states that from 1 to 14 days is applicable. So we have an ordinance that says you must submit a CUP for 1 to 14 days, and we'll talk about it at that point. The town, according to state statute, can, if they so choose, to limit less than 7 days, but our ordinance, we kind of have it drafted already that says 1 to 14 is acceptable. So in essence, when you combine those two together, you're close to allowing 1 to 28 days of short-term rentals. So
an important point on that one, especially considering we have this many more Airbnbs in the community right now. So they're not the only ones. And so if we're gonna make them comply with the conditional use permit, they've done this research, they're gonna state that these units must also comply as well. And so town has been ready to draft ordinances, or not ordinances, letters to these property owners that if we're gonna require the Rushes get that conditional use permit to do this as a short-term rental inside of their existing home, these are the other unit owners that are also doing that. Some are renting a home, or a room in their home, some are renting their whole home. And so with the Democratic National Convention coming up next year, I have a feeling this is going to be different. This list is going to grow. And so we need, as a choice, to either say yes, these require conditional use permits, or we just default to the state statutes. And if people want to rent a room in their home that complies with state statutes, we comply with state statutes. So that's the issue that we currently have in hand. As I mentioned, in relation to the Rush, we are not, I would say we're not violating the in-law unit permit, but they just do not have a conditional use permit for a bed and breakfast. Out of all of those that I've listed up there, theirs is probably the closest to actually a true bed and breakfast when it comes to historic property, kind of a unit in it. Yes, they did build it out, but it's kind of a historic property. The rest of them are just bedrooms and a basement, or a whole home. And the closest one here is on Fairway Woods here. There's an entire home listed on Pitching Wedge Court, I think, that you could rent the whole home, 5,000 square foot home if you wanted. So important points to note. We have the state has kind of, I don't want to say tied our hands, but definitely played a hand in kind of crafting some of that regulation now.
Well, to me, the sad thing is when they came to the Planning Commission, they gave a totally different reason for that. That was for their son.
Yep.
And I have a problem with that when someone comes in and then does something entirely different.
And that wasn't that long ago either.
No.
It's
No.
not like it was 10 years ago and the son is
No.
growing up now.
No,
And now we're going to go for the Airbnb.
A little boy. I mean, he's not even a teenager.
I agree with you completely.
Well,
They were just in here last year.
They misrepresented.
Yeah.
Completely.
I will say that they did also come in and ask if they needed a conditional use permit at the time, and I think there was probably some misinformation given to them that said that they didn't need one at the time. So they actually did come to the town requesting, did we need to do it? And we don't have a spot in our code for Airbnb, but we do have for just a general bed and breakfast. And at that time, that information probably should have been expressed to them at that time. So they could have, at that time, potentially submitted the two together. So, especially,
well, but that's different.
I know.
If it's for her son, that has nothing to do with this. And that's why I, at the time, even questioned why we are allowing a kitchen up there, because there's no reason this child has to have a kitchen. But anyway, I'm just saying it's very disappointing when somebody has to do that.
So as a
Thank you
group,
for
we need to
researching.
make a determination on, are we requiring all, or are we going to default to the state statutes with conditional use permits or not?
We'll probably have to set that as an agenda item.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah.
And so they did submit an application for conditional use permit to us for the next agenda. So they are trying to comply as soon as possible. And so our current ordinance that we do have a bed and breakfast conditional use permit, so they are going under that one at this time. If we ultimately elect to not go that direction, that's fine. We just more or less sent them through a process to get them. And they came in and talked to us and said, we want to comply. So they did as much as they could as soon as possible. So I do give them credit that they did submit the application already, knowing the fact that we don't know which direction we're going to go yet.
Okay.
So,
Dan, may I ask, what role do HOAs play in all this?
if you voluntarily enter into an HOA and that has its own rules into it, you're in those rules and that's enforceable by that body only.
So if the HOA has anything within its covenants that says no rental to anyone as just said owner of home, then they're in violation of that HOA covenants, correct?
So I don't know of too many that would do that, just strictly because you may own a property and something happens in life and it's free and clear and you don't want to sell it. You may rent it out to somebody, a doctor or somebody else that is in that nature. So I don't know too many HOAs that would actually do that.
I'm actually aware of one.
Okay.
That they did do that?
They actually don't even allow foster parenting.
Wow.
in the HOA.
I asked that only because I'm looking at the one subdivision that Newman Properties is proposing. I believe it's the one on Ainsworth and K. And then with Barnwood Conservancy, their HOA is very specific. Very specific.
Okay.
Okay.
They've applied for a sign permit too, so just to.
That's part of our code. In the conditional use permit, you are allowed one sign.
Just to confirm that they are a full bed and breakfast, I think more so than an Airbnb at this point.
Okay.
I would say the other close one is that first one on there, which is welcome to our in-law suite apartment featuring a full eat-in kitchen, living room, queen bed, and large bed. That's actually what's posted on their advertisement. So that's just up to them.
Can't see it.
Oh, sorry, that first one there. So.
Yeah, but you can't see it. It's too, the
Tamarack
light's
Road?
too bright.
Tamarack Road?
Yeah.
I thought we were referring to the house on Good Hope Road.
Well, no, these are the other ones that I'm saying.
Okay.
Yeah,
So,
that's-
we do have similar situations throughout the town.
Yeah.
So.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, it raises all kinds of issues. Also, the liability issue the town might have if a homeowner says, suppose, I don't know.
Well, we'll address it.
Okay.
It's coming back to us, so.
Coming back, yes.
We'll put it on the agenda, one for their application, but a general discussion as well, probably before that
Yeah,
application.
do it before.
Well, it definitely, as Dan mentioned, with the DNC 2020 and with the Erin Hills, it's definitely putting, everyone sees dollar signs. So.
All right.
That was the advertising that was listed was Erin Hills as well as DNC.
Yeah.
Item 6, requests from members. Items requested from members for future agenda items. They can talk. Anything?
No.
Item 7, adjournment.
So move.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We're out at 9:40.
Thank you for sticking with me through that.
Thank you.
She doesn't have to have surgery, so.